Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen daughter is having another baby that she can't afford. My daughter and her husband have recently announced their fourth baby in a small little family gathering I hosted. I know I should be excited and congratulatory, but I'm really not. I just felt exhausted the moment that she announced this. Context: my daughter and her husband aren't really well off financially, so they regularly drop off the kids with me since they can't afford daycare. Of course, I don't mind watching them, but the problem is that they'll pick them up quite late, later than the agreed time. So like I say 9, but then they come at 1. Sometimes it feels like my grandkids spend more time with me than with them. They also rely on me for money as well, but I'm not sure if the money I send them is even being used on my grandkids, as I've seen them buy new stuff for themselves after I give them money for something related to the kids. There's a lot more that I can rant about, but it just feels like it's just gonna be another kid for me to take care of, and I just can't force myself to be excited anymore. I honestly think that they should have stopped at 1. Well, my daughter noticed my lack of a noticeable reaction and asked me if I'm happy to be a grandma again. And I honestly blurted out, "Again? Really?" I didn't mean to, but she didn't take that well and said that I was a horrible person for not being excited for her and for getting a new grandchild, and the whole room just became tense after that. Me and my daughter haven't talked much since, but she still drops off the grandkids. Apparently, she's waiting for an apology from me. And while I'm hesitant, I don't want to split apart the family. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She won't speak to you, but still uses you for childcare? Nope. You need to set some boundaries and fast. She doesn't pick the kids up on time. She finds a different babysitter next time she needs one. Yes, you're so horrible that I won't speak to you, but you're good enough to watch my kids. It sounds as though OP needs firmer boundaries, which include eliminating or at least drastically reducing the free childcare. Not the jerk. Quit babysitting and pull all financial support. If she will not speak to you, she doesn't get to use you as free childcare. Not the jerk, but it's time to play hardball. No offense, OP, but why wouldn't they use you when you offer free childcare and apparently give them an allowance? You need to teach them personal responsibility. Lack of funds? Then they need to get better jobs or take a second one. You are not their ATM. They want to offload the kids, then they need to pay for a babysitter or find a childcare facility. It's time to practice tough love, or your daughter is never going to learn. You're the jerk. You have no right to decide whether or not she should be having any more kids. If you want to be some sort of monster and not help your own daughter with her finances and childcare, that's on you. But as a grandmother, your only role is to support her in any way you can and not be judging her on how many kids she has. Ever since I had my first baby, I've been judged non-stop by people I thought cared about me. As a result, I've gone no contact with most of them. I have 7 kids now, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I love being a mom, and your opinion of me could not possibly mean less to me. If I could find a man who was worth a darn, then I'd probably settle down and let him play the father figure to my kids. But until I find one who's not a complete loser, I'm fine on my own. Fortunately, I qualify for plenty of benefits as a single mother, so I don't have to work anymore. I hope your daughter finds out what benefits she's entitled to, so that she won't have to ask you for help in the future since you're such a judgmental jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. I think that last commenter's the biggest jerk of them all. How did people get so messed up? Brother ruined my wedding by proposing, so I ruined his proposal. I, 35 male, have a young brother, Todd, 29 male, who had a complicated birth and had to stay a month in the ICU. And because of that, my parents have always doted on him and almost denied him nothing, even if it was to the detriment of my sister, Abby, 32 female, and I. My brother drinks in on the attention and has on more than one occasion made himself the center of attention at either my or my sister's or a cousin's special event. Because of this, Abby and I have a strained relationship with Todd and our parents. Unfortunately, Todd met and fell in love with Lucy, who's 24, who announced her own pregnancy at the baby shower my mom held for Abby. When I proposed to my wife, Michelle, 30 female, I just wanted to elope, but she really wanted her family to be there, so I invited my family out of obligation. While out, my best man Jim, 35 male, noticed a receipt from a jewelry store slipped out of Todd's pocket. Jim confronted Todd about this, which led to an argument. Jim told me everything, and I told Todd that he was no longer going to be a groomsman because I knew he was going to propose at my wedding. Todd cried to our parents, and which led to a blowout. In my parents' eyes, since Todd never admitted that he was going to propose to Lucy at my wedding, I was unfairly judging him. I refused and brought up Todd's past behavior. My parents couldn't refute this and got Todd to agree to not try anything at my wedding. This wasn't enough to convince me to let him be a groomsman, but I warned him that if, as a guest, he'd try anything, I would make him regret it. Fast forward to the wedding, and surprise, surprise, Todd walked over to Lucy and proposed to her during Michelle's father-daughter dance and did it in a way so that everyone would notice. Cue my revenge. Jim and I had hired a woman to pretend to be Todd's side piece who cornered Todd and Lucy and claimed that she was pregnant with his baby. Todd denied this, but when she called his phone, I gave her his number and messed with Todd's phone to incriminate him. It didn't look good. Lucy threw the ring back at Todd and left in tears. When Todd saw the smile on my face, he knew that it was me, and I didn't respond to a single call or text from him or my parents until after the honeymoon. Lucy has thrown Todd's stuff out and has been denying access to their kid. Todd is furious and demanding that I clear his name. I sent him a text saying that I had no idea what he was talking about, as well as a screenshot of a bill for the wedding, and gave a vague message demanding reimbursement for half of the wedding costs. Michelle knew the whole time what I was planning and gave me the green light after Todd ruined her moment with her dad. So I felt pretty good, but now even Abby thinks that I went too far. Well, what do you think? Did OP go too far with his revenge or not? Please let us know.
Sounds like Todd messed around and found out.
Am I the jerk for telling a teacher she's being unreasonable? My son, Ollie, is a senior and on ASB. They had organized a homecoming pep rally scheduled for this Friday. They've been prepping for a long time. There's a dance routine and a teacher versus student basketball game. Last week, Ollie tripped over a chair during the night and tore a ligament in his ankle. Obviously, he can't participate in the rally. They can't really continue with the program as planned with my son out. They really tried. The teacher in charge asked other seniors if they wanted to take my son's spot, but they declined because they didn't want to look stupid doing a dance routine with 4 days prepped. That's when my 11-year-old son, Brian, said he wished he could take his brother's place. I thought about that and realized it was actually a good idea. He does a lot of gymnastics and picks up on choreography quickly. I had a talk with Ollie, who wasn't sure. I spoke to the teacher, who asked my son to do some of the choreography, and he impressed her. She then said that she would talk to the other students about Brian taking the spot of Ollie. The students thought the idea would be funny, and everyone agreed to it. My son would actually be paired with Ollie's girlfriend. The teacher told me that the rally is scheduled towards the end of the day on Friday, so Brian would have to miss 3 classes, 2 for prep, 1 for the rally. I spoke to 2, and they were fine with it. Whatever work they do on Friday can be made up on the Monday. The third teacher, language arts, said she wasn't okay with his skipping class to go to a rally at the high school. That's not a valid excuse to miss class, so she won't let him make up a test that she was going to schedule. He would have to get a 0. I told her that it's not like he's skipping school to go to the park. If 2 teachers in the high school is okay, then why can't she be? She said she doesn't play favorites. I told her it's not playing favorites, it's being reasonable. Would she just have me lie? She said of course not, but that's her rules. I said we'll leave it at that. I decided it wasn't worth this much drama, and my son getting a 0 on a test in the 6th grade wasn't going to ruin his life. I could be a jerk dad and go over her head, but I won't. She did email me today and asked if I decided if my son was going to skip class to go to the high school rally. I replied, he's skipping class because he has a doctor's appointment, so he'll make the test up per her rules. What's she going to do? Leave class to see if he's dancing in the rally? Can we please get a few things straight? I'm speaking as a recently retired teacher. 1. The school administrators, not teachers, determine what's an excused absence and what isn't. Schools have policies in place. 2. When the administration decides, per school policies, that an absence is excused, teachers must allow students to make up work. 3. It's rare to have every student in class show up on a test day. There's almost always at least one kid out due to illness or a school choir concert or something. Teachers routinely create alternate tests when they create the original test. 4. Yes, the teacher has to proctor the kids who missed the test. I spent many lunchtimes and after school hours doing this. It's part of the job. It's also why it ticks me off when people say teachers have short hours. I was there 10 hours a day, not counting the many evenings at home grading and calling parents. 5. I always hated it when parents pulled their kids from classes for extraneous reasons, but it was not my call to make. It isn't Brian's teacher's call either. OP, you should have gone to the principal first, not the teachers. I'm just about positive the principal would have given it a green light. Not the jerk, except for the lying part. I'm so confused at the "you're the jerk" comments. My mother was the kind of parent who would make me go to school no matter what, and more than 10 years later, I still get annoyed thinking about it. One test in 6th grade is really not a big deal. Makes me wonder how old these commenters are. You're the jerk. The teacher had a test assigned for that day, hence why the other 2 teachers are allowing it has no bearing on whether the 3rd teacher was unreasonable. Making up classwork and homework is nowhere near as intensive as trying to schedule a makeup test day and time. All you did was teach your kid that it's okay to lie to get what you want and make other people's lives more difficult for the sake of your own personal gain. You're the jerk. His language arts teacher said that it's not a valid excuse to miss class and she won't let him make up the test. She's right. You had a talk with Ollie who wasn't sure, but you decided to push it anyway and you're now lying so Brian can skip class. I'm getting a sense of favoritism here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the teacher? Please let us know. U.S. Air Force supply problems. I need an antenna to fix a jet. They made me order the whole tail. In the early 80s, I was in the U.S. Air Force. My job title was Avionics Comm Nav Specialist. Translation, I fixed radios and navigation equipment on A-7D and later on A-10A aircraft. One of the A-7D aircraft that I was called on to fix had been struck by lightning on the tail. The upper 12 inches of the tail is the UHF radio antenna. It was totally destroyed by the lightning strike. My unit at the time was on temporary duty, TDY, at Barbers Point Naval Air Station in Hawaii for a 30-day exercise. I was just a young pup at the time, 19 or 20 years old I think, but I was the only comm nav guy that was on the TDY. So I need a new antenna to fix the jet and order one from our supply guy. They tell me that no antennas are available anywhere in the US Air Force. Okay, so what do? I ask. They tell me to order the next higher assembly, basically the tail of the aircraft. I argue for a while, trying to explain how stupid that is, but I get nowhere. They actually get kind of nasty with me. At that time, the Cold War was going strong. Any aircraft that was not mission capable was a very bad thing. A grounded US Air Force jet on a TDY at a naval airbase was even worse. It had to be fixed yesterday. I called my boss back at our main base in Louisiana and explained the situation. He tells me to go ahead and follow the supply guy's recommendation, which I do. It couldn't have been more than 3 hours before I'm told to report to my maintenance officer, the officer in charge of aircraft maintenance, wanting to know if I had ordered an A-7D tail assembly. I have to say, as a young airman first class, talking to a major, I was kind of scared. I explained the whole chain of events, omitting who I specifically spoke with at our home base. The major looked like he was going to explode in anger. I'm thinking, I'm done for. Instead, he burst out laughing. I mean, like laughing to the point he couldn't talk. Laughing so hard that it looked like he was in pain, tears in his eyes, etc. After what seemed like forever, at least it seemed that way, he was able to actually speak again. The major told me that the way the supply group worked has always been a problem. What I did just brought it all out into the open with all the attention it got. He actually thanked me. I got my antenna 2 days later. Trespasser demands I replace his car. Okay, so I'm going to preface this post by saying that the entrance to my property is a standard driveway through roughly 20 meters of wooded area before the driveway opens up to about the same size as a standard American 2-lane roadway. My home sits about 500 meters back off of the road and I've sculpted my driveway, as well as a pass in front of my home and a lot of my backyard into a drift track. We have two giant no trespassing signs at the road facing side of the woods, as well as a speed limit 15 sign 10 meters beyond the woods, mainly to remind my friends to not be jerks on their way in when the track isn't hot. Everything is above board with the county, my homeowner's insurance, and local PD. Now with that out of the way, I went to the port today to pick up a much-awaited 1997 Nissan we're building for my mate. As the mate and I are pulling down the drive in the truck, pulling the trailer with the car on it, my mate yells, "What the heck is that?" and points off to the corner of the paved part of the property where I have a medium-sized shed which I keep landscaping things, like a tractor, golf cart, etc. I look over to see the nose of a 2016-2017 Mustang stick out of a now collapsed shed and a guy laying on the pavement next to it. We immediately drove straight over with haste. As we pull up, our entitled person sits up from his prone position and starts yelling about suing me, calling me a jerk and a bunch of other names. I yell as loud as I could, "Hey!" Then I said, "Who are you and what are you doing on my property? Why is your car in my shed?" To which entitled person responds, "I'm going to sue you as your racetrack isn't safe and you owe me a new car." By this point, my mate is already on the phone with 911 and has hopped back into the truck. I explained to entitled person that he's trespassing and in fact, he owes me a shed and probably a few other things including a tractor. Entitled person starts to limp towards me screaming that he's going to own my property and I won't have anything when he's done with me. I decide to just get back into the truck and wait on the police. Roughly 15 minutes later, two police cars come screaming down my driveway with their lights and sirens on and see entitled person beating on the window of my truck with his hands. The police immediately handcuff him and then my mate and I step out of the truck. Entitled person told the police that he's been driving past my property all summer and hearing engines and tires squelching from the roadway and finally decided that he was going to run a few laps today. That he saw the no trespassing signs but didn't think they were there for him. Who else would they be there for? Entitled person was arrested on malicious destruction of property. A tow company in town came and impounded his vehicle, and I was finally able to see that the entire shed and everything in it is a total loss. Entitled person did leave in an ambulance, though he should be fine. Insurance is going to have a field day with this one. I'd just like to add that the particular shed sits 25 feet off of the paved surface. I really hope next year doesn't have as many stressful events as this one. I'm starting by adding a gate with a code to enter the property this week. Am I the jerk for asking for part of my sister's house in our inheritance? So I have an issue with my sister, 35 female, and I, 42 female, settling my mother's current estate, and a friend of mine allowed me to post my issue here. A little background. My sister ran into financial issues about 6 years ago. She lost her job and her boyfriend was transferred out of state. So they moved into a house together, but my sister couldn't be added to the mortgage because of her awful credit score. Her boyfriend passed away suddenly and had no will. His family then took the house and gave back some money my sister put into the house, but they told her to be grateful for getting that much. My mother had just come into some money, so she got a house for my sister and her 2 kids. For the first year, my mom covered everything for the house. About 2 years ago, I took my mom into my home because of health issues and took over pretty much everything for her. I realized that my mom was still paying all the taxes on the home when my sister started complaining that she was getting all these scam calls and letters about unpaid taxes. I looked at a few and talked with her, realizing she had no idea what property taxes were. I went over my mom's accounts and found that she was paying property taxes since my sister moved in, and even some renovations to the house. My mother decided to continue to pay for the back taxes, but I got my sister to begin paying them herself. Our mom passed a few months ago, and I'm still trying to sort through her affairs. Her will states everything is going to be split 50-50 between the two of us. While working, I found out my mom put both her and my sister's name on the deed to the house. After talking with my lawyer, I found out that the house was technically owned 50-50 with my sister and my mother, meaning I could claim 25% of the house or value of the house in the estate. I was going through some things with my sister last Sunday, and I asked her if she wanted me to take half of the renovation costs that mom paid towards her house out of her inheritance. I explained that I did not feel it was fair that she was being enriched by the renovations and getting the house for free as well. She got upset, saying that Mom's will states that everything need to be split 50-50 and that's how it should be. I brought up that I wasn't even asking for the taxes, which would add on at least an extra $50,000. She remained firm, and I struggled, saying, "Well then, I guess I will just settle for 25% of your house." She demanded to know why, and I explained that Mom owed 50% of the house, so half of that is 25%. She got mad and is now blasting me to the family, and some understand my point, but others told me that I'm being greedy. But I don't feel like handing over $150,000 to my sister for nothing, but I was willing to settle for half the renovation costs of $50,000. So, am I the jerk for asking for part of my sister's house? Robber mistakes me, the cashier, as a customer, offers to cut me in on robbery. I'm a convenience store cashier, and besides the occasional robbery, nothing really happens here. We've had a handful of super dramatic, get-on-the-ground robberies, but most are just regular shoplifters. Because nothing really happens here, I like to make small talk with the people in the store to pass the time. Sometimes people have great stories. Sometimes we end up knowing someone in common. Sometimes it's just nice to make a person smile. The other day, I was out from behind the register stocking shelves. I was the only person in the store because weekday afternoons are usually slow and because basically everyone's quit. It's getting cold here and the building still hasn't turned the heat on, so I had a hoodie over my uniform, short sleeve shirt and name tag. So I guess I just looked like a guy browsing the aisles. But it wasn't a problem because when a customer came in, I'd say, "Let me know if you need anything," and that cleared it up. Maybe two came in the entire start of my shift. Just as things were wrapping up, and I've had a long dead streak, a guy about my age came in and seemed in a great mood. He also had a big hoodie, but it's cold out, so I didn't think anything of it at all. I said, "Let me know if you need anything," from down where I was with the shelves, and he came and stood by me, kind of giggling. Weird, but I've seen weirder. Whatever. Finally, I said, "Can I help you?" And he just goes, "Hey." So I'm like, "Hi," and he starts talking to me about the logo on my hoodie, local sports team. And we go back and forth a bit. My side of the conversation was normal. His side was really overstated. In hindsight, it's because he was nervous, but I was kind of checked out and didn't really care at the time. Like, I'd say, "He's got a good arm, but his head just isn't in it this season." And the guy would reply, "Oh my god, the best arm, once-in-a-lifetime talent, but he's not there at all. Gone, trash, garbage, they should just cut him." I keep stocking the shelves, not thinking at all about the odd nature of what he's saying, and instead thinking in the back of my mind, is he gonna buy something or what? From there, we actually got to talking about how we got into the game and had a really heartfelt conversation about going with our fathers and sitting in the cheap seats, and did actually sort of bond a little. Finally, we run out of sports commentary to make it one another though, so there was a wave of a silence for a few minutes. Then he gets uncomfortably close to me and whispers, "I like you a lot. You know that?" So my first thought was that this guy was hitting on me. No problem at all if that's what you're into. It's not my scene though, so I took a healthy step back and told him thanks, but no thanks. He laughed kind of maniacally and explained to me, no, he meant he liked me, so he'd be willing to cut me in on what he was currently doing. I ask what that is. He explains, "Ain't nobody in here. I've got my truck outside. I'm gonna load it up with beer and crap. You seem like a good dude, so I'm tipping you off in case you want anything. Ain't no one here. It's easy money, bro." I couldn't believe it. He was trying to rob the store, and he was telling me about it. I quickly realized his overly excited, socially inappropriate behavior must have been something he was on. Rather than confront someone that's on something, in my experience, their moods can change from perky to violent really quickly. I just went with my gut and decided to play along. I knew I needed an excuse to get back behind the register, so I said, "Good crap. Forget the beer though, man. I'm going for the real easy money." And I hopped over behind the counter, where I promptly, but discreetly, pressed the button that locks the doors from the inside, followed shortly by our brand new panic button. First time I'd ever used it. Hoping there wouldn't be a time, but at least I wasn't genuinely panicking yet. At this point, he's loaded both shoulders up with six-packs and headed for the door to make the first of what I'm sure he anticipated would be several trips. He pushed against the door with his hip, and of course, it didn't budge. And he pushed pretty hard, anticipating it would swing easily, so I kind of felt bad seeing him wince. He nearly dropped the beer. He turned to me, more frustrated than scared at this point, and went, "Bruh, the door is jammed. Can you give it a try?" I was nervous to step out from behind the register in case this guy had a weapon, so tried to deflect and was just like, "Maybe you've got to pull it." He started freaking out and was running around the store. He was trying the back door, but it locked as well. He was trying to climb up and reach the one tiny window we've got, but not only was it too high, it doesn't really fit a person. I kept playing dumb. Eventually the cops came. Took a while, and the guy had resorted to hiding in the stockroom by the time they made it over. Not before first wrecking a couple aisles in his frenzy, but at least I was able to lock him in the stockroom once he went inside. They came in to arrest the guy, and he starts trying to blame the whole thing on me, saying I set him up, saying I made him do it. It genuinely confused the police for a bit. So, I don't work here as a robber. I do work at the gas station. Though how much longer will depend on how many robberies I live down. Fill out a health and wellness survey of every shift after losing most of our benefits? Sure, boss. After reading a story about the boss that calls the worker off the clock to berate them made me think of my petty little story with my company. Like many other companies, our leadership recently released news of upcoming changes that even though profits for our company are up, they are eliminating most of the remaining perks that are still standing. Company-supplied phones for anyone except the tops of the departments, gone. Reimbursements for things like safety shoes, eyeglasses for those of us in the metals and fabrication area, gone. All 401k matches, merit increases, and/or bonuses frozen until figures reflect pre-lockdown levels, i.e., much larger profit margins even though workload has increased. Our direct area has had a few manpower losses due to a few folks deciding to retire and a few that decided to pursue work-from-home opportunities, hiring freeze to replace anyone. All of this while the majority of the higher-ups and anyone who works with a computer and argued they can work from home are, working from home, which in our eyes is essentially a substantial raise or savings for those lucky individuals that can work from home, fuel, daycare, etc. With the cases on the rise again, they decided to implement a health and wellness screening that must be completed every shift within 24 hours to the start of that shift and presented at the security checkpoint. There's even a nice link to where you can complete it on your own phone via an app for our convenience. Already annoyed at the above-mentioned cuts, and now they are wanting me to use my personal phone and data to complete a survey before working hours. I read the requirements again. It just has to be within 24 hours to the start of the shift and presented at the security checkpoint. We were working on average between 12 and 14-hour days, so I was easily able to complete and print a physical copy of the survey at the end of the day for the following day's requirement. The next day I showed up to security and gave them the paper. She just kind of looked at it and asked what it was. Told her it was the wellness screening so I can enter the building for my shift. She replied, "Oh, well, it has to be done before your shift. This has yesterday's date on it." I pointed at the disclaimer that said it just had to be within 24 hours to the start of the shift, which it was. Which, to her defense, is kind of silly because a lot can happen between your day prior and the start of the new shift. Looking slightly annoyed, she said, "Oh, okay. You can just use your phone going forward so you don't have to print it out." Thanked her and said it was actually easier for me to just do it at the end of my shift so I didn't have to think about it in the morning, especially since I didn't have access to Wi-Fi until I was already past the security checkpoint. Third morning, I did the same thing. She rolled her eyes and put the paper to the side. Didn't realize it at the time, but I was informed afterwards if we didn't use the app version, it didn't have a digital record, so they had to save all physical papers in a folder and retain them in their office. The fourth morning, the head of security was at the door, and as soon as I showed the paper, he asked why I was choosing to do the physical paper instead of the app. Didn't want to get too in-depth, but told him it was easier for me to print it out at the end of the prior workday, and these guys do not pay my phone bill, so I was not going to use my personal phone and data to do a redundant survey off the clock every morning. He tried to argue the paper option was really only for the plants and not for the offices, and I was the only person printing them out in lieu of using the app. Told him I did not see where it said plant use only on the form, and if that was the case, HR would need to update the verbiage. Couple of coworkers in the area caught part of the interaction and how the guy was complaining to my boss as soon as he hit the door about 10 minutes later. I filled them in on what I was doing and they decided to follow suit. All 15 of us completed the survey at the end of the day to bring in the following morning. Friday morning arrives. I'm sitting in my car watching as a line forms and everyone has a paper in their hand. Can make out security guard's face. She looks ticked off. Finally get out and go to walk in. Big grin on my face and say good morning. She doesn't say a word, just does the temperature check and snatches the paper out of my hand. Around first break, I see our HR rep walk into the shop and talk to my boss. He looks over at me and points in my direction. Oh boy. And she walks over and introduces herself. We'll call her HRQB because she looks like she can play for a minor league. HR. Good morning. I'm HRQB with Human Resources. We received a call from the head of security and they're saying that you're giving them printouts of the new health surveys. Do you need help with setting up the app? Petty me. Oh no, that's not necessary. I actually already told him it's easier for me to do it at the end of my shift the day prior instead of doing it on my personal phone in the morning. I don't get very good reception here until I'm on the Wi-Fi, and that's past security. HR. Well, you don't need to be on the Wi-Fi here to complete the survey on the app. You can even do it at home before leaving for work and take a screenshot of the confirmation. That way, you won't have to waste paper and the security team member at the door won't have to keep it in a folder and drop it off at the office every day. It will save a lot of time and energy. Petty me. Well, unfortunately, the company has taken away all of the company-issued phones except for select individuals, and I'm not going to do the survey on my personal phone or during non-work hours. I agree, doing this survey every single day is a bit redundant and wasteful, but it isn't my paper, and proof is required for me to enter the building. While it is tedious, I'm pretty sure that security is on their phone for 7 out of 8 hours that they are stationed at the door. Think they can take 2 minutes to walk down the hall to drop off the papers at the office. Pretty sure I could have poked the vein on the side of her head and caused a stroke. I thanked her for her time, and my team lead came to pull me to help him with a job/save me. The first few days of the following week, most of my coworkers kept printing out the physical copies, which I thought was hilarious, but it was pretty short-lived. HR must have worked harder than she had ever worked in her life, because wouldn't you know it, come that following week, an email came out with a link to a new survey that only had to be completed one time online. And if after that at any point you had flu-like symptoms or were around anyone that was sick, they held you to the honor system to report it to supervision/HR. My daughter is demanding to go vegan. My wife and I have 8 kids between us. I know it's a lot, no need to comment on it. This post is mostly about our 13-year-old, Gina. Gina came to me recently and said that she wants to be vegan. I told her I'll pay for groceries, but she'll have to plan and cook her meals. She can't live off frozen food or takeout, and her mom and I will be making sure that her meals are healthy before taking her grocery shopping. She was not thrilled. She asked if we could make a small change to our diet to accommodate her, like switching to vegan pasta and cooking the meatballs separately. But we said no, because we aren't going to change our food and eating habits because she wants to be vegan. She said okay and went to her room. Then she started sending me and my wife links to expensive pots and pan sets. One set was $800, plates, cups, and bowls for $200, and her own utensils. I asked her why she was sending this to me, and she said that she needs new pots and pans and plates, etc. because ours are contaminated. I told her ours are perfectly fine, and if she wants her own, she can buy them with her allowance and start babysitting. Later that day, I got a call from one of my sons saying that Gina was telling him and my other kids that they have to get all of their snacks out of the fridge in the game room. The game room has a kitchenette because she needs it for her vegan food. When I called and asked what she was doing, she said her vegan food can't be in the same fridge as our food, and it's not fair to make her go all the way to the garage when she's hungry, so she thought taking over the game room kitchenette would be a good compromise. I told Gina I'm done with all the vegan BS, and that she can't be vegan while living in my house. She threw a temper tantrum because she thinks I'm being cruel, and she's barely spoken to me since then. So I wanted to know if I was the jerk. Not the jerk, but this issue is a lot more complicated. It's not about being a vegan. I have a 13-year-old daughter. At this age, kids feel like they have zero control over their lives. They're desperately trying to find a way they can assert control. Let's also call a spade a spade. 13-year-old girls are emotional roller coasters. May I suggest you and your wife have a heart-to-heart with her? Understand why this is important to her. Don't dismiss her feelings. After you've let her explain her position, calmly reiterate your family's limits and abilities to accommodate her food choices. This situation needs to be handled with communication. Nothing good ever comes from dismissing a teenager. Yeah, I wonder how much of Gina's demands are in part because she's lost in the shuffle of her new large family. And if OP's family is like many other big families I've met, there's probably a fair amount of domestic and childcare duties that are dumped onto her. I know that he doesn't want us to comment on it, but 8 kids is a lot. Kids can feel lost in the shuffle with half that number, so I can only imagine 8. OP also mentions in another comment that they have one kid with a shellfish allergy, so there's no shellfish in the house at all, and another kid with severe medical issues whose diet is monitored and the family eats food that is okay for the kid. I wonder if this whole vegan thing is an attempt to get attention and consideration that she feels like she's not getting. I grew up with 3 siblings, one with a medical issue, and even though my parents were very attentive and present, sometimes I felt lost in the shuffle. I can't imagine what the girl must be going through. Being 13 is hard enough, but not feeling important in your own family must really suck. Telling her to make her own food makes perfect sense, but the family can still help accommodate her by making simple adjustments, like cooking the meatballs separately. Maybe they can compromise by starting with a vegetarian diet instead. That would probably be an easier transition for everyone, and then she can move to veganism as she gets older. You're the jerk for so many reasons. 1. Having 10 kids? I'm personally child-free, and I don't think anyone should be having kids with the current issues our world is facing. The fact that you have 10 shows how extremely selfish you are. 2. Your daughter wants to become vegan to make a positive change in the world, something you and your wife have no consideration of whatsoever. And instead of supporting her, you just inflict your outdated way of living onto her. I hope she goes no contact with you and finds friends who will support her in her journey to heal Mother Earth. And I hope you and your wife stop bringing kids into the world that you clearly aren't fit to raise. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their daughter? Please let us know.
I can't help but wonder if Reddit might not be the best place to seek parenting advice.
Am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to contact her biological parents? I, 40 female, and my husband, 42, have a daughter who's 9. She was adopted when she was born by myself and my husband, and she knows that she's adopted. Her biological mom was a very sweet 17-year-old who wanted to give her the best life she could. I don't know if her father ever even knew she was born. Recently, she had a school project where she was supposed to write about where she comes from. She's determined to find her biological mother and father to find out. I offered for her to write about our family instead. My husband and I don't want her reaching out to them. We told her this, and she's upset, saying that we don't understand, and she'll always wonder about them. She said we're being selfish and keeping her from finding out who she is. We obviously just want what's best for her. Am I the jerk? Commonly asked questions. The adoption was closed per my husband and I's request. The birth mother did give us her contact information in case our daughter ever wanted to find her. She does have a letter from her birth mother explaining why she was adopted and that it wasn't because she didn't love her. Update. I took some people's advice and called the phone number I have. To my surprise, she returned my voicemail. So I did get her age wrong. She was 18 when we adopted our daughter and is now 28, not married and no additional kids. She did confirm the biological father does not know my daughter was born. I let her know why I was calling, but I truly did not want them to have communication. I explained my reasoning and that we're her parents and are only doing what we think is best. She let me know that when my daughter and I are ready, she'll be there to answer any questions. I should also add her biological mother did offer to do an interview by sending a video answering my daughter's questions or an email. Please, please, please reconsider this. Do some research. My little sister was adopted at birth in a similar situation, and I'm a foster and adoptive parent now. And I promise, if you don't let her meet her birth family when she's younger, she will create her own narrative about them. They won't be real. They will be saviors or demons, and that will follow her into adulthood. So will questions about who she is, where her freckles came from, why she's allergic to cats. If she meets them now, much like a beloved but weird aunt, or a step-cousin who lives in the basement, or a best friend you adore but still see as human, she can accept them as real people, like all of us, with great attributes and maybe serious flaws. Even if she struggles, you have years left to process and be there for her and help her through it. That is not necessarily the case if your lack of support makes her take this journey as an adult or otherwise without you. Please evaluate whether saying no is really born out of your fears and anxiety. And kindly may be a self-centered choice. You may worry that her birth mother is younger, prettier, funnier, that they will instantly connect, that you will be replaced. But you have to know that the bond you've grown over these past 9 years is not replaceable, right? She will still love you. You are still mom and dad, and if she finds someone else to love and be loved by in this world, that's what we all want for our kids. Life is better the more people that love you. Please also look into some adoption communities. Adoption kids are so much more at risk of serious mental health issues, and a lot of that is these unanswered questions, this burden of never knowing their original families. Read The Primal Wound. Read studies on adoptee well-being. You would absolutely be putting her emotional and psychological health at risk by refusing her these connections. And if you do refuse, what's the upside for you here? She does it in secret online through Facebook research and forms a relationship without you even knowing? I mean, she can just do a DNA test as a teenager and she'll probably get some hits and you'll never know. Maybe she even waits till 18, but now she knows your insecurity and finding her biological family isn't something she shares with you, either for your sake or hers. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not wanting their daughter to meet her biological mom or not? Please let us know. If you say so, I'll comply. In the end, we'll all lose. Tiny bit of pertinent information. In 2014, I had a C-section to bring my son into the world. I was let go from my previous job because they didn't want the liability if something happened to a pregnant woman on the job. I was rehired by the fast food company where I held my very first job, which is not McDonald's. It's a bit higher price than that, where you could get fried chicken, a hot dog, and a double cheeseburger at the same time. There will be no mention of my kid's father because he wasn't there for us. I lived with my eldest sister, who was more like a mom to me, which is why she's mentioned in this story. She was the person I had with me when I had my C-section. She has been the one there for my son every moment of his life. My doctor said if I was going back to work before his recommended 4 to 6 weeks of healing time and rest, that I had to be on light duty and that I was not to lift more than the weight of my son, which was 6 pounds. The story. I was rehired by a fast food company that was always extremely busy at each major point in the day. Lunch made over $800 between noon and 1 p.m., and dinner made over $700 from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Of note, the only reason I was rehired was because hiring manager loved me to pieces. When I left the first time, she told me I always had a job with her because she loved my work ethic. She said that I was the best worker she had had in years. Nobody ever picked up extra shifts as quickly as I did. Nobody cared to learn as fast as I did. So since I had previous experience, they wanted me to work lunch rush, but I begged them to let me work dinner. Dinner would allow me to spend quality time with my newborn, and my sister, who I lived with, would be home from her job to take care of my son while I worked. Now, I started a month after my C-section, right? Wrong. I started 2.5 weeks later. If I didn't, I couldn't be hired. I had actually gone back to my doctor and asked his office to write a full letter explaining my light duty requirements and took it with me my first day back. I walk into the manager's office expecting to see my hiring manager, or at least a manager I recognized. Nope. Enter stupid manager, who had worked as an hourly employee at another location and thought she knew better than everyone. I handed stupid manager my doctor's note, and she looks at it like she's holding a dirty baby diaper. I asked her to make sure hiring manager sees it, and she doesn't respond. I shrug it off and walk to the back where the break room was. I saw that all of my coworkers were the same from the last time I'd worked there, and they all crowded around me to see baby photos. I was crying the entire time because it felt like a homecoming. It felt like I was finally surrounded by a support system. Until stupid managers screamed that we needed to get back to work when there wasn't even a customer. We all scattered like flies and made ourselves look busy. I'd kept my phone in my pocket before clocking in, and I periodically checked it, always between customers, to make sure nothing had happened to my son while I was gone. I would think most, maybe not all, managers would have understood that I hadn't been texting, just quickly checking for new notifications, but not stupid manager. She hated it. She'd been sitting in the office checking the cameras, and I suppose I'd checked my phone one too many times. Yay, postpartum depression and anxiety. Stupid manager came flying around the corner at light speed and stared daggers at me.
Hazel, what do you think you're doing? You cannot be on the phone while you're clocked in. You should know this already.
Now, I'd never been one to deal well with being yelled at, so I just said I was sorry. Some of my coworkers stood up for me, which again made me cry. Stupid manager apparently hated crying too. She turned back to me, shooting the same daggers into my soul.
What are you crying about now?
Thankfully, a customer walked in, so she just stormed off. I saw red. Within the hour, I watched her start to get ready to leave her shift, which I thought was a blessing. Of course it wasn't. Enter lazy manager, who I'd had issues with the last time I'd worked there. Not that I said anything, she just never worked. She sat in the office, staring at the cameras, eating food from the line, which the company said is illegal. You don't get free food, you get a discount on food. Did she ever pay for it? Not once. She wrote it off as part of the end-of-day throwaway food. I can't remember what it's actually called on the end-of-day report. Lazy manager saw me and her face fell. "Oh, hey Hazel," she said with disdain. I put on the sweetest smile and attempted to make small talk with stupid manager, but they made a major mistake. They left the door cracked, and wouldn't you know it, I worked on the side of the line closest to the door where I could hear everything. This is how it went. Lazy manager: "I thought hiring manager told her no." Stupid manager:
I guess not. She's been on her phone all day.
Lazy: "Of course she has. She's the worst employee we've ever had. Ugh, I'll call hiring manager and figure this out. I've never disliked someone as much as I dislike her." Stupid manager:
She seems pretty lazy. Oh, here's the pitiful doctor's note.
Lazy: "Haha, we'll see how that works. It's not like we've never had kids before." Now that fully ticked me off. I bit my tongue. I waited for what I knew was coming. I knew exactly what I was going to do because I was just plain sick of being bad-mouthed by others. Stupid manager leaves and lazy manager calls me to the office. I was in the middle of making an order, but she is the manager after all. I left that poor person's order sitting right on the line and walked to the office. "Yes, lazy manager?" She doesn't even look up from the computer. "Hazel, what's this doctor's note for?" I just take my phone out of my pocket and try to show her pictures of my son. "Oh, you had a kid?" In a tone that implied nobody would ever want to be with me or something. I smile sweetly and nod, a plan working itself out in my head. Fast forward 4 days. Lazy manager hasn't been helping us close the store at all, and I've been getting home after 2 a.m. every day, from a place that closes at 10 on weekdays, 11 on weekends. I'm done. My sister can't keep taking care of my kid like this, and it's completely unfair. Lazy manager is working again, and we're really busy. I go to put fries in the fryer because our fry cook is busy making chicken tenders. I open the little freezer besides the fryers, and it's empty, which I knew it would be because I never saw anyone put a new box in. Huh, that sucks. "Hey, we're out of fries out here," I yell. No response. "Hey coworkers, fry cook is busy and we need fries out here." Nothing. Odd. Oh well. "Hey, lazy manager, we need fries out here." Lazy manager opens the office door. "Get them yourself, Hazel." I walk over to the office. "Lazy manager, I can't. My doctor said I can't lift more than 6 pounds. Lazy manager rolls her eyes and looks dead at me. "Look, go get the darn fries out of the freezer now. 2 boxes. I don't care about this 'my doctor said' crap. Do it, and stay off your phone." And there it was, my opportunity for malicious compliance. I walk into the freezer and look at the box of French fries. I really shouldn't. This could be detrimental to my health, according to my doctor. But lazy manager said so. Now, I'd noticed that morning that a couple of my stitches hadn't started dissolving yet, so I'd already called and scheduled an appointment about 2 weeks early. This was all lining up perfectly. I grabbed that fry box on the bottom shelf and shifted it where I could read its weight. I wasn't supposed to be on my phone, but she obviously couldn't see me in the freezer. I snapped a picture of the box. I sent it to my sister with the message, "Manager told me I have no choice but to do this myself. Doesn't believe my doctor's note at all. Can't respond. She won't let me use my phone anymore either." I made sure the message was sent and then switched my phone off. Grabbed that fry box and lifted it and carried it to the little freezer 20 feet away. I'll say one thing for adrenaline. It definitely works to numb pain until it wears off. I felt a wetness in my pants and excused myself to the break room. Not the bathroom. That was too private for this. I turned where the cameras couldn't see me and looked in my pants. It was blood. I was bleeding. But from where? Oh, that's right. The stitches that hadn't started healing yet. But there was another pain I'd never experienced. I walked to the lazy manager with a napkin covered in blood. Thankfully, the line wasn't anywhere near the office. I would never contaminate someone's food. Because of course, I tried to stop the bleeding. I was immediately sent home to my sister, who was in a severe panic over the message. I called my doctor's office with 10 minutes to spare and explained the situation, and was scheduled for the following day and told to go to the hospital if the bleeding continued. My sister and I bandaged me up to the best of our ability, and I waited for my appointment. When my doctor found out why I still picked up that fry box, he sounded more like a concerned father figure when he said, "I'll handle it." But I assured him I had it myself. All I needed from him was a doctor's note. You see, I'd found out that hiring manager, who was also the store manager, who was lined up to become district manager, had come back from vacation. She was actually scheduled for the following day, and I was supposed to work. I waddled into that store, in uniform, doctor's note clutched in one hand, the other grabbing every solid surface it could to absorb some of the shock of movement. She took one look at me and guided me to a chair in the break room, concern written all over her face. "Hazel, what happened?" So I told her everything. She asked me if I ever gave either manager a doctor's note, and I said I had. She couldn't find it, but she didn't need to. What lazy manager and stupid manager didn't know was that my sister had a printer that could scan documents, and we had a weird feeling that we would need a copy of the first doctor's note. So not only did I have a new note clutched in my hand, but stapled to it was a copy of the original note that told the managers that I was supposed to be on light duty because if I ripped a stitch, it could lengthen my healing process. The new note explained that since I was not given light duty, I not only ripped a stitch, but pulled a few muscles in my lower body. When hiring manager read both notes, she was furious. She checked the schedule, and when she saw neither of the other managers were working, she called them both in for a meeting. She asked me if I would stay for said meeting and that I could sit in the office in her comfy desk chair while we waited. I took that seat and waited for the show. 30 minutes later, hiring manager was giving them an earful, telling them they had no right to disregard doctor's orders and that they should never have told me to stop being on my phone. Turns out, hiring manager had worked for this establishment when she had her youngest, so she knew the anxiety of being away from a newborn for too long. I watched stupid manager get fired on the spot, but not lazy manager. Lazy manager was demoted to line cook because hiring manager told her she needed to relearn some humility. She worked as a line cook at another store for about a month and was then fired for stealing food. Edit. When I first posted this, some people were wondering why I didn't sue the company. First, it didn't even cross my mind because I had never been through something like that. Second, when it was brought up to me by my best friend, my sister said it wasn't worth it for some reason. Third, I was more worried about the immediate need to provide diapers and formula for my son. If you were curious, hiring manager found alternative ways for me to work. She gave me a comfortable stool to sit at and trained me on the cash register. I got to sit there and take orders instead of walking around while going through another 2 months of healing. And I was given an extra meal a day through the company at her request. She also helped me get to the restroom every time I needed to go, gave me extra break time, and if she couldn't help me, she made sure someone else could. Maybe it was so she didn't have to worry about a lawsuit, but part of me thinks it's because she cared about me like a mother figure would, well before I had my son. My son and I are doing great. I healed amazingly well. Yes, I knew my stitches weren't healed, and yes, my logical brain said, this is bad, don't hurt yourself for these people. But I also didn't realize I'd actually ripped the stitches out of my body, nor that I could tear muscles that easily after a major surgery. I didn't ask, the doctor didn't tell, and my sister didn't know either. How I got my landlord arrested for auto theft. I used to live in a rental townhome. The place was great. It was run by a big company, but they paid an on-site super to run the office, coordinate repairs, etc. When I moved in, it was this nice older retired couple. Few years later, they moved on, and the company hired these two young dudes. They were jerks, recent college grads, and looked down on the blue-collar tenants, did loud parties all night, generally ignored the grounds, ignored maintenance requests, etc. But that's not how I got them arrested. In addition to renting the townhouse, you could rent a covered spot. If you did, they gave you a hang tag, and if you didn't have the hang tag, you'd get towed. I had the same car, same spot, and same tag the whole time I lived there. One day I come out and my car is gone. It was towed for no hang tag, but in the pictures the tow company took, it's clearly there. I paid to get it out and complained to the two idiots. They had to call to authorize a tow. Company couldn't just do it on their own. They gave me a half-asserted apology. About a week later, same problem. Again, towed for no tag. Again, the tag was right there. This time I called the corporate office and complained. After that, it started happening nearly every day. When I talked to the supers about it, they'd just laugh. I knew they were doing it on purpose, so I did some research. The tow company gave me the names of the people who were calling it in, and it was mostly one guy, but sometimes the other. The tow company wasn't liable because the landlords had called them, so that was that. But I did some research and found out that in my state, calling for a tow when you know it's not a legal tow is Grand Theft Auto, just like if you broke into a car. I also found out you can record conversations in my state without telling the other person. So I went in to meet the two bros to talk about the situation. They told me, on tape, that the first 2 times were mistakes, but after that they did it on purpose and would keep doing so until I learned my lesson. They stated that they knew I was okay to park there, but they didn't care. I took that recording and the list of calls to a buddy who's an attorney, and he helped me take it to the local police. Police were more than happy to have a couple felony charges dropped into their laps, so they filed charges and went to arrest them. Corporate fired them the same day, refunded all of my fees for getting my car out, and gave me a rental discount for a few months. They both ended up eating the felony and got probation. Last I heard, they weren't able to find decent jobs because of the felonies and also couldn't pay their student loans. Both ended up working construction, which they had sneered at because that's all they had left. Picking everything to death finally backfires. I live in a duplex with my partner. The other unit is occupied by 2 roommates who I'll call Cassie and Karen. We're all in our 30s and we all work from home. Cassie has lived here several years. My partner and I have been here for a few years. We get along well with Cassie, who's very friendly and helpful, a great neighbor who's become a friend. Over a year ago, Cassie's wonderful roommate moved out and Karen came along. We were welcoming to Karen, giving her some homemade baked goods on her move-in day, inviting her to hang out, offering some tips on the neighborhood, etc. But there was always a wall. I'll admit that was a little disappointing. We'd grown accustomed to having easy, comfortable friendships with our duplex neighbors, but I respect that people have plenty of valid reasons for keeping to themselves. My partner and I have tried our best to be good neighbors regardless. Slowly but surely, the vibe changed at the house. Cassie, the extrovert of the group, spent more and more time alone in her room. There were fewer impromptu yard hangouts, a shared space where we used to hang out together. There are often no sounds at all from their unit, even when they're both home. Cassie finally revealed to me how controlling Karen had become. Cassie is a 30-something with a curfew now, who has to walk on eggshells in the house she's lived in for years. Even the smallest actions cause tension, and trying to discuss them or set boundaries upsets Karen. Cassie even recently procured a mini fridge so she doesn't have to use their shared kitchen. Karen has also revealed more and more controlling tendencies towards me and my partner. We're in a separate, unattached unit. For example, according to Karen, we water the shared grass too much, even though it's not her call. The landlord wants a green lawn and pays the water bill. We make too much noise walking in this creaky old house. We don't even have guests indoors because of lockdown in grad school. We are quiet walkers. We don't wear shoes in the house. We try our best to avoid stepping on the creakiest parts of the floor and generally have light footfalls. It's just a matter of us having different work and school schedules, which is kind of out of our hands. My partner keeps his bike in the shared storage space, and it's somehow in Karen's way unless it's positioned very precisely. She does not have mobility issues or any clear reason to need or want this. Once when I was working on an art project on the porch, including spraying a protective coating, which I did at a downward angle at close range and with good aim, she came out to investigate her garden meticulously to ensure no chemicals were getting on her plants. They were about 10 feet away. It's hard to describe, but it was very peculiar. We talked to Karen too much. She once literally asked for space when we ran into her on the street and said, "Hello, how are you?" The cherry on top is that almost everything Karen has a problem with is conveyed through passive-aggressive texts. Sometimes aggressive texts. Then she'll randomly be excessively cheerful without addressing the outburst or disagreement, as though to signal her regret. It's unsettling. Then, one fateful day, we watered Karen's garden bed. She hadn't for days and it was hot. The little plants, mostly new transplants, were drooping. We were already out watering our own garden and figured it would be neighborly to help her out. Since hers is the closest to the hose, it also felt kind of mean to pass it by. We kept doing it as summer went on. Her plants began to thrive. Karen eventually cornered my partner in the yard and told him to stop watering her garden. We obliged. For a time, she took better care of her plants. But now it's time for our malicious compliance to shine. Karen got sick when she caught it last month. For several days, Karen stayed inside with the friend that she caught it from. Thus, she was not here during a stretch of dry, hot weather. In her absence, we fell back on the last instruction she gave us. Don't touch her garden. Some of Karen's plants are dead now. The ones that are still alive were weakened and are being visited regularly by slugs, snails, and caterpillars. Earlier on in her time here, I'd offered to help Karen with non-toxic pest control, including an offer to personally pull bugs off her plants by hand, but apparently she prefers to do it all by herself. Cassie was also under strict orders to never water Karen's plants. She did as she was told, and Karen's indoor plants are now dying as well. There's one especially crispy one in the window. Since she returned from lockdown, Karen has been acting nicer towards her roommate, but has not said anything at all to me and my partner. We're breathing a little easier without her micromanagement, and Cassie seems relieved that there's less tension for now. All's well that ends well, I guess. Am I the jerk for not believing my daughter's obvious lie and canceling our weekend? Last week, I went to use my Bluetooth headphones. They were gone out of my bag where they always are. I asked my daughter if she had them. She's always taking my stuff without asking. I've told her all she has to do is ask whenever she needs to borrow my stuff. That's all I ask in return. Because I know I won't get it back, as she'll deny it. She said no. I was skeptical. She guilt-tripped me, saying I'd never believe her, etc., which she's not wrong. I don't, as she has a history of lying. She's constantly lying to me, even small, insignificant things. It's frustrating. I felt awful and apologized. Just assumed I'd left them in the car or somewhere else. I wanted to believe her. Anyway, yesterday I was in her room looking for something I know she had borrowed, which I needed back. I didn't go through her stuff or anything of the sort. I respect her privacy. Noticed her makeup bag on the floor and had a look in there for my moisturizer, and there are my headphones. I was not happy. Decided I'd wait to talk to her when I picked her up from her course. When she gets in the car, I tell her I found them and ask why she had lied. She keeps saying she doesn't know how they got there, etc. I ask to see her Bluetooth pairings on her phone. As if it's not paired, I'd believe her. She wouldn't. We argued about it for at least 10 minutes. She kept up the argument that I wouldn't believe her either way, which I told her, no, that's not true. She just refused to show me. She wouldn't budge. She ended up crying, and I could tell she was very, very stressed. I kept asking to see the pairings, that if she hadn't used them, they wouldn't be in her phone. She ended up getting out of the car and walking off. I watched her, and unsurprisingly, she got on her phone straight away. I gave her a couple minutes for myself and her to calm down, then asked her to get back in the car. I asked again to please just show me her pairings. I wasn't surprised when she showed me straight away. I knew she had deleted it when she got out. It was just so obvious to me. I said to her, "You flat out refused to show me before you had a chance to delete it. You were in obvious distress about showing me, but as soon as you had the chance to delete it and get back in the car, you show me straight away. I wasn't born yesterday." But now I'm the jerk, because I said I'd believe her, and now I don't. I'm at my wit's end with her constant lies and deceitful tendencies. I want to believe her, I truly do. It just doesn't make sense for her to not know about them being in her makeup bag when she had makeup on when I picked her up. I'm meant to be taking her and her friend away for a trip this weekend to hot pools and a bungee jump. I want to cancel it if she doesn't own up to the truth. Am I the jerk? Edit for info. She's almost 18. I started to recognize this behavior as an issue from around the age of 5. She's been in and out of therapy from the age of 13 or 14, always stops and refuses to go back after several sessions due to thinking the therapist is a jerk. Her words from her most recent one. Even though she likes it at first and is open with chatting to me about it again at first. She's had no major trauma that I know of apart from me and her dad splitting when she was 3. She was week on/week off with us co-parenting together. Anyway, little update. She rang me. I completely avoided the subject of asking for her honesty entirely and went straight to asking her if she'd be open to trying therapy again. She lost it on me, started saying very hurtful things, even said she'll be spending Christmas at her dad's. No idea where that came from. I let her finish and asked what time she will be home as we need to sit down and have a chat. I told her I won't be angry, we just need to talk. She's not coming home tonight apparently. I didn't get a chance to let her know I will be canceling the weekend as she hung up on me after telling me she wasn't coming home. Thank you to everyone that's taken the time to comment, not the jerk, or you're the jerk, etc. It's all helped. I've tried to keep up, but there's so many. I will do my best to answer. Karen's sister stole my bike, so I called the cops on her. I was saving all year for a birthday present for my son, who's turning 14 this year. I was able to get him a bike, and he's been wanting one for a while since he grew out of his old one about a year ago. His birthday is next Friday, and he's been extremely excited. The bike was kept in my parents' garage, and my sister, who's also 14, decided to take it out for a joyride and managed to get it stolen. I told her she had to find it in 24 hours or I'd be calling the cops. My parents thought I was just trying to scare her, but I really wasn't. I'm a single parent, and I saved for months just to get it. My sister couldn't find it, so this afternoon I called the police, and they've told me they probably won't be able to get the bike back, but my sister will end up getting a slap on the wrist. My parents are mad at me because I have the potential to ruin my sister's life with this. Am I the jerk? Your parents need to take a loan to buy a bike for your son for his birthday, and your sister can get a job to pay them back if need be. Then you'll drop the charges. Until then, she goes through the court process. Not the jerk.
You assume that in order to afford the bike, they need to get a loan? Okay, Reddit.
Not the jerk. Your parents should pay for an exact replacement bike for your son. The sister should earn money for chores and contribute. Not the jerk. Let's get this straight. Your sister was the first person who stole the bike. It was not just a little joyride. This will not have lifelong ramifications on her getting jobs or into college or renting apartments. It will, however, hold her accountable for her choices and actions. And your parents, like it or not, they should have at the very least offered to pay for a replacement and helped her look for the bike. So a date in family court may be the rude awakening that they all need. Well, what do you think? Is Opie the jerk for calling the cops on her sister or not? Please let us know.
Act like a thief, you'll get treated like one. Next.
Am I the jerk for calling my sister's wedding a knockoff of my own? I've always been the favorite among my siblings. As the baby of the family and the only boy, I got doted on a little extra. This extra doting increased when I expressed an interest in dance and actually discovered a talent for it. This makes sense in my mind. My schedule required more time and money devoted to it since I now had to be taken to classes and showcases, needed the proper attire, etc. There were a few years of tension between my sisters and I, especially during our teen years, where it seemed like they blamed me for what was going on or expected me to apologize for our parents' choices, something I adamantly refused to do. Tensions seemed to ease some when we went our separate ways. My sisters stuck around in our hometown to get jobs while I moved to a city about an hour away for college. I met my now husband there, and despite what my parents tried to talk us into, we got married in a tiny ceremony at the local courthouse where only immediate family was present. We had a party with our close friends and family later to celebrate, but the ceremony itself was just like we wanted. A small part of an intimate and peaceful day focused on my partner and I. My oldest sister got engaged a couple months ago, and my parents jumped at the chance to start planning an over-the-top wedding. I've been around for some of it, and a lot of what is being offered to the new happy couple is what was suggested to my husband and I when they were trying to convince us to have a big wedding. This didn't bother me at all. In fact, I was happy my sister was getting what seemed like the wedding of her dreams. Unfortunately, it seems she's still holding a grudge over what happened when we were kids and has made multiple jokes about how she's the favorite now, and that this is payback for all of the things she missed out on when I was being chauffeured to dance practice. I took the first few in stride, but it's getting old now that it's been repeated so many times. I recently told her the jokes were getting old, but that still didn't stop her. I finally had enough last night, and after a few drinks at a little weekend family get-together, I told her that her wedding was essentially a knockoff of mine, and that I doubted our parents would be putting this much effort in had I gone through with the extravagant plans they wanted me to have a few years ago. She left the room in tears, and I've gotten mixed reactions from family over what I said. Am I the jerk? ETA, I have no interest in special attention from my parents and moved on from the feud with my sisters years ago, as I thought that they had as well. I live a good distance from them all with a life of my own and can only make it back to visit a few times a year. This doesn't stem from me craving attention. I'm glad my sister is getting all of it, as my parents have a tend to hover even all these years later. My complaint is in the repeated jokes despite my request that they stop. Yes, you're the jerk, and it sounds like you've been the jerk their entire lives. You happily soaked up your parents' attention, knowing you were the favorite, and didn't even care that they didn't share your golden child status. Then, the second the attention was off of you, you decide to try to attack as low as you can, instead of being happy that your siblings actually got to experience some of the rarefied air you've been in your entire life. Your siblings taunt you because you are entitled and spoiled and not very likable as a result. You taunted her because you are mean and resent not being the center of attention. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. After years of feeling unimportant to your parents, your sister can't control her giddiness at finally having their attention. While her comments are obnoxious, it speaks to a lifetime of being overshadowed by you. While you're not responsible for your parents' crappy behavior, you need to acknowledge it and acknowledge you believed that you deserved it because dance? Give me a break. The biggest problem is that you still see no problem with it. And the minute your sister is getting their attention, you have a problem with it. You're so full of yourself, you have to claim the wedding you didn't have as your own. You're a crappy brother. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know.
Those jokes she's making would kind of get on my nerves too. I don't know if OP's as bad as they're trying to make him out to be.
How my dad didn't go to Vietnam. In 1969, my dad graduated from Rice University with a 5-year master's in chemical engineering. Edit. Since so many commenters seem to think he was some kind of rich kid, his parents both taught public school, and he went to college on a full academic scholarship. The Vietnam War was raging, and although he and his classmates had all received deferments during their studies, their deferments were over, and it was time for them to go before the draft board. Most of his classmates weren't worried because they were slated to see the Houston draft board, which had a reputation for handing out continued deferments like Halloween candy. However, my dad is from Oklahoma, which meant that he had to be evaluated by the Tulsa draft board, which was much, much stricter. Dad had applied to the chemical engineering PhD program at Stanford and had been accepted with a full stipend. He was excited to go, but first he had to get past the draft board. The Stanford facility wrote a letter to the Tulsa draft board explaining that Mr. Hammer would be embarking on a research program that would greatly benefit the war effort and asking for another deferment. The Tulsa draft board wrote back in short order. Mr. Hammer had already benefited from the only deferment he was going to get, and thus he was to present himself to the Army Physical Examination Center post-haste. Dad was sad to lose his shot at a PhD, but not too sad, because now he could marry my mom. He'd also had several job offers already, so he accepted an offer from Exxon and he and my mom got married. His superiors at Exxon wrote another letter to the Tulsa draft board explaining that Mr. Hammer was now gainfully employed in the oil and gas industry, where he would be conducting engineering research that would greatly benefit the war effort, and asking for another deferment. Just as quickly, the Tulsa draft board wrote back, reiterating that Mr. Hammer was not going to receive another deferment, and that if he didn't hurry up and get his Army physical, they might have to get the law involved. Disappointed, my dad went to his Army physical as scheduled. He's always been a healthy guy, and he performed just fine on most of the examinations, up until the very end when they measured his heart rate. It was over 100 beats per minute. "Well, we can't pass you with that," said the Army doctors, "but you're probably just nervous. Come back in 2 weeks and we'll give you another physical." "Nervous?" said my dad to himself. "I can work with that." For the next 2 weeks, my dad spent every spare moment basically teaching himself the opposite of meditation. He'd close his eyes and think of the most horrifying mental images he could, trying to drive his heart rate as high as possible. Finally, the day of the physical arrived, and things went much as before. He passed nearly everything with flying colors, but when the time came to measure his heart rate, once again it was well over 100. The Army doctors promptly diagnosed him with tachycardia, scored his physical 4F, and sent him home. He's in his 70s now, and apart from his mysteriously high heart rate, which I inherited, he's always been in great cardiac health and still is. So glad your dad didn't have to go over there. Some of us have actual brains and are meant to have an actual impact on the world. I would never serve in the military, and neither would any of my friends. It's honestly just a huge waste of taxpayers' money. I never thank anyone for their service because it's a load of BS. When people ask me, "Oh, what about all those who paid the ultimate price?" I say that choice was theirs, just like my choice to focus on my artwork. One day, I'll be a top animator for my favorite anime because that's what I've set as my goal. I'll be darned if I ever throw away my dreams to join some stupid broken system.
Hey Reddit boy, as a vet, how does that last comment make you feel?
I'd really rather not talk about it. My daughter-in-law keeps making social media posts that make me look bad. I have a son, Ryan, who's 22. Ryan has a wife, Holly, who's also 22. They got married and moved in together around 4 months ago after dating for 3 years. I'm really happy for them. There's just a small problem though. Holly has recently started making posts on social media with jokes about how horrible mother-in-laws are all the time. When seeing them, I thought I did something to upset Holly. I asked her about it, and she insisted that I hadn't upset her and that she just posts them because she thinks they're funny. I asked Ryan about it, and he said that Holly never seemed upset at me and told me that I'm overthinking it. But Holly keeps making these posts. The rest of my family have even been asking me if everything is okay between me, Ryan, and Holly because they've seen the post too. The last straw was when Holly made a post about arguments with monsters-in-law. Now everyone in my family thinks I argued with Holly when that didn't even happen. I asked Holly about it again, and she said that once again, she just posted it because she thought it was funny, not anything actually personal to me. I told Holly that she's making me uncomfortable and that she's making my family think I'm being horrible to her. Holly said that's not her problem and that people need to learn how to take a joke. I asked Holly to please stop making these posts because people aren't going to interpret them that way. Holly said I'm being unreasonable and told me I can't tell her what to do and said I'm a bossy jerk. Report her to Facebook for harassment. Sometimes you can get posts yanked. You're the jerk. Not everything is about you. Some people like Reader's Digest jokes. Get over yourself. You're the jerk. Well, if you were not having a fight before, now you are. You can't control other people's choice of humor. Sharing a funny meme about mothers-in-law is not an attack on your personal mother-in-law. It is not her job to call up confused relatives and explain jokes that they don't get. You should apologize for overstepping. In the future, don't be so worried about what other people think. Have confidence in yourself and your relationship. And remember that if you are insecure about something, that's your problem, not someone else's.
Do you ever get the sense that the people on Reddit just really don't like mothers-in-law?
Imagine if OP was the one posting all these memes about how much daughter-in-laws suck. Don't make that new order for the large Canadian pizza. Yesterday, I was looking for something easy for dinner and phoned the nearest pizza from a small building. I ordered a large Canadian pizza for pickup, and the person on the phone confirmed the location and my phone before telling me I could pick it up in 30 minutes. At no point was price mentioned in this exchange. I had specifically ordered this because I was looking at their website and I saw that they had a large banner on their site which stated they had specific types of large pizzas for $16.99. On arrival at the Red Roof Pizza from a small building location, I went inside to pick it up. Server: that'll be $27.67. Me: I'm sorry, I thought your website mentioned that this large pizza was $16.99. Server: sorry, we don't offer that price over the phone. It's online only. Me, planning my compliance: I'm sorry, you're telling me that if I call in, my pizza is almost double the cost as ordering online? Server: sorry, the details are on the poster behind you, and you can see the small print in the corner that says online only. The details were, as promised, in very small print on a very large poster. Throughout this, she had been holding the pizza out towards me, waiting for me to take it after paying. I admit, I could have been a bit more polite, but I was a bit hangry and grumpy and just wanted to eat my pizza for the advertised price. I turned abruptly away and left her with the pizza. I walked back to the waiting area and pulled out my phone, placing an order online for the same pizza I had ordered over the phone. I refused to make eye contact, but watched her quizzically looking at me in my peripheral vision, all the while holding my pizza. She turned to put it down, but glanced at her computer, presumably seeing the notification for the same order, under the same name with the same cell phone number. She looked from her screen to me, where I sat looking at my phone, watching out of the corner of my eye. I'd like to think this was our pizza standoff, our duel of wits, our respective slices of stubbornness. After a few drawn-out seconds, she called me back up. Server: okay, you can pay for your pizza now. The total comes to $17.83. I paid it in cash, and they handed me the same pizza they had been holding the whole time. The pepperoni on the pizza, icing on the cake, was hearing them call into the kitchen just before I walked out. Don't make that new order for the large Canadian pizza. Am I the jerk for threatening to leave my daughter's wedding because of her rules? I'm 48, male, and my daughter, who's 26, she had a wedding yesterday. She moved back to our home state of Utah with her fiancé after living in Boston for college and dental school. She does not seem happy to be back here and said that she only moved back because her husband, who's 28, male, his company transferred him here. She knows that in our area, families run large. She's one of 3 kids only because my wife, who's 47, became sick after our youngest, but it is not uncommon to have families of 8. When she started planning her wedding, she started worrying about venue capacity and having to spend money on babysitters. For couples with small kids on her list, she made it clear that she could not accommodate kids under 4 at the wedding. This caused a lot of ire, and we got phone calls asking why. My daughter's rationale was that she thought older kids would enjoy a party more. My daughter's younger sister, Ashley, who's 24, had been married for 2 years and begged her sister to invite her husband's brother and his wife to this wedding too. Ashley's brother-in-law, 41, male, and his wife, who's 33, they have 5 kids, 4 of whom are under the age of 4. When they RSVP'd, they indicated they'd only be bringing their 8-year-old daughter. I know Ashley's husband's brother well, as he funded my brother's new business and employs Ashley's husband, my son-in-law, in a job that allows Ashley and him to be full-time parents to their kids. However, that side of the family took a while to warm up to Ashley, as they are wary to newcomers. So the day of the wedding comes, and everybody arrives with the kids they RSVP'd for, and then Ashley's brother-in-law arrives early with all 5 of their kids in tow. The nanny they have for their kids is not there. My daughter is angry when she hears of this, and their explanation is that their younger kids were upset and they wanted to be in these wedding pictures too. An argument ensues where my daughter says that they had on-call nannies and just for whatever reason decided this was the event they didn't want to leave their kids for. I look over and Ashley is getting upset and her brother-in-law and sister-in-law won't budge. The toddlers are getting anxious and starting to loudly cry, and I finally tell my daughter to just let them in or we'd be here forever. She asked why I was taking their side, and I finally say that she either lifts this child-free policy for family or just cancel the wedding, because I was done with her rules and leaving. My daughter says, "Really, Dad? Way to take sides." She then stormed off, and there was a minute where she considered walking down the aisle with her future father-in-law. She ended up relenting, but says her wedding is marred by this event. Am I the jerk? I was afraid that this would become this standoff, and Ashley would face ire from her in-laws. You're the jerk. She didn't want small kids at the wedding. You chose to side against her and try to force the issue. You're in the wrong.
If there's one thing we've learned from these Reddit stories about weddings, it's that one of the most important things you need to hire on is security.
Sad, but true. I hope you enjoy failing your final college class and have to retake it. First of all, this didn't take place in the US, nor is English my primary language, so a few things might seem weird or confusing. Just ask for clarification if needed. During my stay in college, and for a few years after graduation, I had a side hustle where I charged people a small amount of money to format their academic papers according to our national standards as set by our National Association of Technical Norms. On top of that, I would also write an abstract in a foreign language, English, and even get your bibliographical references up to snuff. It wasn't much. $60 got your paper formatted as it should be, $80 got your references properly inserted from scratch, and $100 got you the whole thing with a carefully written abstract. It wasn't much, even on our local currency, especially considering that there are people who do this full-time and charge an arm and a leg for it. However, that also includes proofreading, but a slower turnout time. This means that it's normal for people to hire those services months or weeks in advance from the deadline for turning in your papers. This story is set in late 2017. I had just left my job, and meanwhile, I was formatting academic work almost full-time since it was the end of the semester. This was a particularly busy semester since, if you do good work, people will refer you to their friends, who will refer you to their other friends, and so forth. Word of mouth really does work. Somehow, I was recently being looked up by a lot of people in one specific course in the healthcare area. Now, I don't particularly like formatting papers from people in healthcare for a few particular reasons, but hey, you're not going to turn away honest pay for honest work if you're unemployed. In any case, they all seemed to be in the same class because the deadline was the same, December 9th at 8 p.m. and not a second longer. The night before, I was enjoying a cold beer, and I was messaged by an unknown number who said they got my contact from so-and-so that spoke highly of my work. When she mentioned she needed me to format her paper, I said I don't take on any new work the day before it's due, because that always ends in complications for me. Well, she pleaded, nay, begged me to do it, said she would pay me a little over my usual rate and that she was good for it, Scout's honor. I sighed before I replied, okay, fine, but I'm only sending you your paper once payment goes through, okay? She instantly replied, yes, OMG, thanks. A few minutes later, I had what had to be the worst paper of the semester in my files. Whoever wrote it took no care or had no idea how to tame Microsoft Word. It was all over the place, with different fonts, spacing, a few things outlined. I began regretting this already, but no backing out now. I put on some music and cracked out my whip and began taming that vile beast of a paper, and 4 hours later, I was done. What had once been a literary work equivalent of an orc was now a proper, formatted, neatly organized academic paper. I messaged her, "The work is done. I'm awaiting payment," and went to sleep. I woke up around midday to see she had replied with a picture of a receipt for a bank deposit made through an ATM to my account in the amount that was agreed. Normally this would be it, but the problem was that it was made at really early in the morning, so the bank hadn't processed it yet. I logged into my bank account, and sure enough, the amount was there, but as pending verification. I messaged her to let her know she would have her paper as soon as the bank verified and cleared the funds. To my surprise, she replied she needed the paper now, as she was meeting with her professor one last time to make sure everything was good. Now, I've had to deal with this before, and let's just say I've already learned my lesson, so I wasn't risking getting ripped off. Well, we had some back and forth for a while, as expected, saying she was good for it, and can I please send the paper now? K thanks, bye. I might have sent it if I knew her, which I didn't, and the person who referred her to me was someone who had been referred by someone else who, you get the idea. At that moment, I got a hunch that the funds wouldn't clear, and wouldn't you know it, around 3:30 p.m., after getting barraged with a ton of messages, I checked my bank statement. The deposit had been canceled by the bank with the reason, empty envelope. At that moment, I was a bit aggravated at myself for not following my own rule of not taking up work that is due the next day. Oh well. I messaged her a picture after scrubbing out my bank balance and told her that I would not be sending her paper. A few moments later, I got a phone call and she was panicked, saying that she swore she had put the money into the envelope and into the ATM, and it must have been the bank's fault, and that she was going to deposit it right now, and could I please send her the file? I told her I was only going to send her the file if she met up and paid me in cash, to which she made up thousands of excuses as to why she couldn't meet up today. Oh well, it's not my deadline. Around 7:20 p.m., I was being barraged with messages and a few phone calls, to which I ignored. The calls stopped at 8:30 p.m., long after the deadline. Surprisingly, a few days later, when I was out running some errands, I ran into one of my other clients, who casually asked me if I had taken on work from so-and-so, and if something happened. I said I did and asked why. Well, she told me so-and-so blasted me to pretty much all of her classmates as being a charlatan and a thief, because according to her, I took the money up front, vanished with no paper trail, and because she missed the deadline to turn in her paper, she had failed the class and would have to retake it next semester. Ouch. I hope that money she ripped me off for helped soften the cost of having to retake that class, as it would cost her that amount several times over. But hey, a lesson in honesty and good faith has no price, right? My mom stole my $150,000 inheritance and kicked me out of the family when I asked her to pay it back. My mother has me all kinds of messed up, and I'm not sure if I should just walk away. Backstory. I'm 27, female, and my mom, who's 53, has had a really hard life. She was in an accident at age 5 and lost her mother. She didn't have an active father, and no one on her mom's side wanted to take her in, so she went into foster care for a few years. Not a good experience from what she told me. At age 8, she was adopted into a loving, wealthy family of 2 college professors, along with an adopted brother. She had a hard time adjusting, made a lot of bad decisions, and basically ran away in her late teens. This whole time, her adopted parents were doing everything they could to reach out to their daughter and help her get back on her feet, but mostly their efforts were wasted. She has a kid at age 18, then again a few years later. She lost them to foster care, and then had me with a different man. Eventually, she gets her 2 first kids back, my older half-brothers, has me, marries twice again, and has 2 more kids, my younger brothers. In total, she has 5 kids, 4 boys, with me, the middle girl. We grew up very, very poor, with our mother always gone or bringing back strangers to party, leaving me to raise the youngest 2. We would visit our grandparents, mom's adopted parents, for holidays and special occasions, but with my mother's strained relationship with them, we weren't able to visit as much as we kids would have liked to. My childhood was crappy to say the least. That being said, I loved my grandparents, especially my grandpa, dearly, and they loved us kids back. And as much as they struggled with my mom, they were nothing but loving towards her from what I understand. The thing about my grandparents is that education was very important to them. I remember the encouragement for college started very early on from them, and they made it very clear that I was expected to go to college. When I was allowed to visit them, they would take me to bookstores and let me loose. They'd say, "Okay, pick one," and I would come back with 3 or 4, unable to decide. They'd laugh and get me all the books, which I could not believe. I took pride in knowing my grandparents thought so highly of my future and was determined to keep making them proud. Fast forward to 2005. I'm in 5th grade, and my grandma passed from long-term alcohol use. My mom has a wake-up call and gets sober, but is still absent from AA meetings and general disinterest. Then in 7th grade, my grandpa passed as well from the same illness. This crushed me. I wasn't able to articulate any of it at the time, but that's when the big-time depression rolled in. From there on, school was very difficult for me, as well as my home life. I ended up falling pretty deep into my sorrow and stopped going to school around my junior year of high school. After a breakthrough, I decided that I had to get the heck away from that house and ultimately moved out at age 17 to a bigger city about 45 minutes away. I barely finished high school with a 1.75 GPA, and somehow 2 teachers from the new school convinced me to sign up for the community college. They helped me fill out my FAFSA and everything. Side note, when I received my mom's financial info for that year for the FAFSA, I saw she claimed to make around $10,000 a year. That's how poor we were. After my first semester in college, I was hooked. Science was actually pretty cool. I realized I loved to learn and kept pushing through. I worked full-time, busted my tail, and after 4 years, I finally achieved an associate's degree. But that wasn't enough for me. I was able to transfer over to a university that I would have never been able to attend right out of high school due to grades and whatnot, and finish my BS in my favorite field of science. In total, it took me 6 years to get my BS degree, but I worked so hard, and I was so proud of what I was able to accomplish. Keep in mind, during my whole college career, my mother was characteristically absent and dismissive of what I was doing. When I was in my early 20s, still at community college, she packed up her and my baby brothers and moved 5 hours up north. I didn't have a car and couldn't come see them hardly at all. I was upset by this, of course, but that didn't matter to her. She eventually moved back a couple of years later. Anyway, I graduate college with $40,000 college debt. Not so bad compared to most I always thought. I knew that I would have to work hard and accrue debt to get where I wanted in life, so this was a necessary burden, and I've accepted that. However, things have turned in recent events in my effort to get closer to my late grandparents. I reached out to their close personal friends, let's call them the Johnsons, to get a better idea of what my grandparents were like. They were so close that the Johnsons were actually the arbiter of my grandpa's will. In conversation, it came out that when my grandparents passed away, they left a $150,000 inheritance for their grandchildren's education. However, 3 years later, around 2010, my mother came to the Johnsons and confessed to them that she blew all of the education money. On what? I have no idea, but I do remember her buying a 2-door sports car, our only car for a 6-person family, after Grandpa passed, so I'm sure the rest of her purchases were great investments. This was really upsetting to me for many reasons. I was the only grandchild that actually went to college, and that money could have easily covered my expenses. If I'd had that money, I wouldn't have had to spend every moment for 6 years busting my tail. I could have afforded to only have 1 job instead of 3. I could have spent that time studying and getting better grades, or doing an internship, which literally makes or breaks your career in my field. I wasn't able to do any of that, and haven't been able to get a related job. Not the worst thing, but unfortunate. I have a fine job in tech that I wouldn't have been able to get without my degree. I'm plenty happy with my decision. My relationship with her was already strained, but this really crossed a line for me. I emailed her telling her I knew what she did and she needed to pay me back. That's probably not going to happen. She owns a small business in social media and it doesn't do that great. I kind of want to just cut ties forever, but I'm so angry. I also want her to pay me back the money she stole. I'm so out of my depth, I don't know what to do. Am I the jerk for flexing my real-world success on my terrible former high school teacher? I'm 23, male, and my former high school encourages all parents to attend parent-teacher conferences, so my parents always go to my younger brother, who's 17's conferences. He's a senior in high school and has the same teacher I did back when I was his age. This guy was a terrible teacher. He was condescending and snarky, and he always started crap with me. I always got excellent grades since I was smart, but he never liked me. I didn't like him either. And at the end of the year, he told me I'd never make it in the real world. I think he picked me out because I was confident and outgoing, and it made him insecure. In reality, I was always going to make it in the real world, and he probably realized I would surpass him pretty quickly. Maybe he was jealous or something, I don't know. And I already have. I just graduated college a year ago and already have a nice job in finance that pays more than he'll ever dream of stuck in a classroom. So I decided to take my brother to conferences instead of my parents so I could give him a nice life update and check in. He looked wary and surprised when he saw me. To paraphrase how the whole conversation went, he was like, "Hey, how have you been, OP? I haven't seen you in a bit." And I was like, "Yeah, it's been a minute, Andy. I don't have much time to come around. I just graduated college with honors, and my new job in finance keeps me pretty busy. The pay makes it well worth it though. How about you? Did you get promoted to principal yet?" I knew he hadn't, since my brother told me he had run for the open principal position and didn't win. He was like, "No, but that's okay," to save face. And I was like, "Yeah, and you always have this cute little classroom. Man, I forgot how small it is. Charming." And he was indignant, like, "Yes, I quite like it." He gave me my brother's report card when the conference was almost over. I knew his wife had a baby since my mom follows her on Facebook and is always telling me things like that. I said as I got up to go, "Well, I'm sure your wife must be so pleased with you making it in the real world as a teacher. I'm sure you're bringing in so much dough for the family with this little gig. Maybe you'll even upgrade to a medium-sized classroom one day. Bye, Andy," and started walking out. I gave him the thumbs up sign, and he gave me a sarcastic wave really aggressively. I could tell he was steaming. Am I the jerk for flexing on my crappy teacher and proving him wrong that I'm the one who couldn't make it in the real world? My Karen daughter refuses to pay rent. I, 50 female, told my daughter, who's 24, she needs to pay rent. She got out of college in February and has struggled to find a job until October. I supported her during the job hunt, and she's been living home rent-free. I was excited for her to finally find a job, especially when it's surprisingly well-paying. She told me she won't get paid until late this month. I said it was fine, but she still needs to pay rent. The other day, she told me she planned a trip with her friends and was saving for plane tickets. I reminded her again she still needs to pay me rent, as it felt like she's trying to avoid rent so she could save money for her trip. She told me she would pay the rent, but deducting her credit card bill. Apparently, she wanted me to pay her credit card bill first, then keep the rest as rent. I told her that was unacceptable. She rolled her eyes and tried to walk away. In the heat of the moment, I said some unfortunate things. At the end of the fight, she finally agreed to pay the rent and her own credit card bill. My daughter has become extremely distant since. She started working overtime almost all week. I tried to talk to her. I even told her that she can keep her original plan, but she just kept fixating on the things that I've said, either ignoring my message or telling me how I've misunderstood her and I made her feel bad. My husband thinks I'm the jerk because he thinks our daughter was already stressed and I kept reminding her for the rent money she didn't have. Demanding rent in a fight made me the villain. Today, she handed me a stack of cash, rent and credit card bill included. I tried to tell her the money will be in a family savings account. She rolled her eyes and said she doesn't care. She then cut up the credit card I was managing the bills for. My husband gave me a "I told you so" look. I honestly don't think that I deserved any of this treatment. I love my daughter very much, but I can't help but wonder if my husband was right. Am I the jerk? Info. A lot of people have asked me what I said, so I'll answer here. The reason why I said it doesn't matter is because not only did she confront me on the spot, I don't think she'd react that way if the fight hadn't been about money. It was in the heat of the moment. I may have called her a bad or a crappy person, but that was it. I did not cross the line. I'll clarify the Christmas present part. We charged it on installment, so she knew how much it cost. She's still entitled to use the credit card as she likes. She paid as much as she could with her part-time jobs. Like I mentioned in one of the replies, she never made that much. She barely paid any part of that iPad. It's mostly on her own food and chores. My husband and I covered the rest. They aren't dead. Nothing can't be paid off with her income. More info. If she doesn't want to pay the rent, she doesn't have to. We want her to contribute to the family. Based on how much she's making, the amount equal to the broader city average rent is what me and my husband decided on. She can afford it. She isn't struggling. Final update. This will be my last update on the Christmas gift situation. So many people seem to be fixated on it. No, we didn't make her pay for it. We charged it on her card so she knew how installments worked. This was just a rare incident. We have a large sum expense. My husband and I paid it off at the end of each month. She made little money tutoring back in college, and she used the credit card for food and clothes. These were the expenses she actually paid for, and what she made were oftentimes not enough, and I had to cover the extra. The average rent is for a studio apartment in the broader city. As I've mentioned, it's impossible to find a decent rental in this area. There is no comp for it. I'm tired, and this will be my final update. You're the jerk. In the heat of the moment, you said some unfortunate things. This is my favorite am I the jerk behavior. We have no idea what you said here, but since you're trying to hide it, I bet it made you sound like a colossal jerk. So, you're the jerk. Now you're mad that your daughter doesn't want to treat you like family when you treat her like a tenant. You want to act like a crappy landlord, you're going to get treated like a crappy landlord. Right? And in a comment, she says what she said didn't matter. No, it matters. And her not wanting to reveal what she said makes me think she said some unforgivable stuff. OP sounds like my mother-in-law. Just say the most hurtful crap you can think of to win the argument. Try to pretend like it never happened, then wonder why people are still mad about it years later. She poisoned her relationship with my brother-in-law that way, and she's chipping away at my husband too. OP, when your daughter stops talking to you, this will be why. Info. What unfortunate things did you say? That seems to be pretty central information you've left out. In response to the edit, calling your kid a crappy person is crossing the line. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. First, for whatever you said to her that you're not telling us. Second, for knowingly demanding rent from your daughter, starting from before she actually gets paid. She's your kid. Would it hurt to wait 2 months and have a plan for reasonable rent starting then? Getting a new job involves expenses, professional clothes, figuring out transportation, etc. You're not a landlord, you're a parent. If you want her to treat you like a landlord, you'll need to give her the autonomy of a tenant. Her room and designated spaces are her own. You can't touch food that she buys or prepares. You can't ask about her finances at all, beyond expecting a rent check on time. You're in the right to act this way, but coming from a supposed loving parent, you're the jerk. Your daughter is right to cut up the credit card you have access to if you're going to act this way towards her. You can't have it both ways, with the control of a parent and the income of a landlord. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how they acted or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting to cash out my life insurance policy? So yeah, I have a terminal medical condition. I'm male 28, which I won't go into too much detail about. I didn't have the best health insurance and doctors, so I found out I had a big problem pretty much when it was too late. About the only thing I had of value, other than some meager savings, an even smaller 401 and my car, was a life insurance policy I got years ago when I was 18. It was a relatively small amount yearly and awesome terms, so why not? I always thought I could swap it over to a future wife and kids, but not happening now. So I haven't been able to work now for about 2 months, but I won't be eligible for hospice care until probably a few weeks before the end. The actual policy itself was for an eye-watering amount if I passed before a certain age, which unfortunately is what's going to happen. I've been living at home with my parents rent-free since I stopped working, which is good of them. We haven't had the best relationship growing up, and they pretty much only did the minimum required by law in terms of how they raised me. No complaints, but not Parents of the Year material. A lot of this was due to finances. I've been putting money towards food and utilities, but not the rent they are paying, as that was a cost they were covering by themselves, and my being here hasn't increased it. Anyway, I've been investigating cash outs, both through the company and investor groups that will give you a bit more in exchange for being named as beneficiary. I will probably stick with the company offer to get things moving faster. There are going to be some taxation issues, but the end result will be that my parents will essentially get an amount that will cover my funeral and possibly a really good secondhand car. I estimate that the amount I will get will be enough for me to rent a nice condo near the beach, nice meals, maid service, some great experiences while I'm well enough, and some in-home care nursing towards the end. My parents have basically said that the life insurance policy named to them will set them up for life and allow them to buy a house and invest, etc., and probably even retire early. They're in their 50s, and we're probably going to have to work until they dropped. They're telling me that they've made a lot of sacrifices to have me move into their house until I go to hospice, but I really don't see what that is other than the inconvenience of 3 adults in a 2-bedroom house. One of them was going to give up work towards the end to provide some home care until I qualified for hospice, but my cashing out will mean they can keep working. I get that it would be the noble thing to help my parents out, but I don't want to. Final edit. I'm tired and I'm going to have a nap. Thanks to all the messages of support and clarification on hospice entitlements and fin advice. To put concerns to rest, when I said I won't be eligible for hospice for a few weeks before the end, I worded it badly. As much as is in my power, the only time I will go into hospice proper is my last few weeks. I'm young and strong, and I plan to spend as much time by the sea until I can't. Let's see if life messes that up for me too. I will be meeting up with my social worker soon and making sure I claim everything I can. I love my parents, despite the past, and my family and I know this is putting a terrible strain on all of us, and I hope they will forgive me and keep the best memories on top. That's all, everyone. Take care. Edit. A few people have asked about the cash out versus beneficiary payment. 6 figures cash out, 7 figures if it goes to the beneficiaries. It's a crazy good policy, but only because of my age and the condition I have. It's like winning the worst lottery ever. Not the jerk. Your parents are looking at you as a post-mortem ATM. They actually are looking forward to you passing so they can cash in. Take the money and spend it how you wish. If you don't have long to go, you should be spending it as happy and comfortable as you're able to. Besides, it's your life insurance. It's your money. It's a kindness already to leave enough to cover the funeral. Your loss shouldn't be their gain. They should want the best for you while you're here. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Cash it out. Rent your condo and enjoy the time you have left. Who cares if they get mad about it? They're only looking at what you can do for them and don't care how much happier you will be for the remainder of your life. They're being selfish instead of being caring parents. You enjoy that money. You deserve it more than they do. You're gonna need to repeat that back to me. Double malicious compliance. Hey y'all, it's drive-thru OP again. I'll start off by saying this. If you ever feel petty enough to ruin a drive-thru person's day at work, ask them to repeat the order back. This isn't because it takes too long or it's difficult, so much as it's insulting to our intelligence. I still do it with a smile, mostly, but not this evening. When a car drives in the drive-thru, it sets the sensor off instantly, and we hear everything everyone in the car says. My headset beeps, I greet the customer, and I hear, "Oh, sweet, mellow yellow peach." I ask whether he wants a small, medium, or large. "No, jerk, not you. How about you pay attention?" Enter malicious compliance 1. I'll pay attention, all right. In the meantime, I tell him to let me know when he's ready. He orders, in the most convoluted way possible, insulting me directly in between every other item. I even do him the favor of making his items a combo, because I've learned that when in doubt, err towards nice. He then stops me as I'm about to say the total. "Look, dude, you're gonna need to repeat that back to me. I know you messed that crap up." He had a very rude tone the whole way, which I'm learning to be better at picking up on in my twilight years. I'm 46. Enter malicious compliance part 2, which unlocks part 1. Time to employ my memory and voice acting skills. "You got it, sir," in my California surfer Keanu Reeves voice. "Dude, sweet, mellow yellow peach." I then go back to my voice for my parts. Small, medium, or large? "No, jerk, not you." "Well, let me know when you're ready." "Okay, man, I want a bacon burger, a big one." "Which burger, sir? We have—" "Look, dummy, a bacon burger." I keep going back and forth, switching between exaggerated and insulting California dude crush voice and my regular voice. Each of the 5 times he called me a name in the transcript, I make it in my voice, so it's me insulting him with his own words. My manager, Bruce, jumped behind the ice machine to laugh at what I was saying. I repeated like 98% of the conversation verbatim, right up to the request to repeat it back to me. He finally says, "You know what? Goodbye, and go forget yourself." I say, "Have a nice evening," and wave to a man who is in the process of ruining his tire just to make a gesture with the hand towards me as he unsuccessfully passes the drive-thru window. I couldn't have planned it any better. He seriously popped his tire as he hopped the right curb. The best part? The 2 family nuggets he ordered, 50 nuggets for $11.99, didn't have to be made. Bruce was happier than any of us about this, as the cost to the company was so great. This guy disappeared into a flurry of yellow lights, clanking chains, and customers with carfuls of food, hopefully never to be heard from again. My wife refuses to pay her fair share around the house. I, male 39, have been married to my wife Stacy, female 30, for 5 years now, and we have 2 kids together. I also share 3 kids with my ex-wife Hannah, female 37. Ever since Stacy and I got together, she's made it very clear to me that my 3 kids are mine and Hannah's responsibility, not hers. This has worked out well so far, but lately it's been taking a toll on me. I pay Hannah child support every month. Ever since Stacy had our first kid, she's demanded that I give her the same amount of money each month to keep things fair. In addition, I have to pay for half of our joint household expenses, like the mortgage, utilities, food, and my own car. Stacy pays for the majority of expenses for our kids. Here lies the problem. Stacy has never taken issue with having to care for mine and Hannah's kids. She picks them up from school, takes them to activities, and ensures they have everything they need. However, anytime she purchases anything for them, she immediately sends me a Venmo request and demands I cover all expenses related to the kids that are not hers. We recently went on a family vacation, and she demanded that I pay for half of the portion for our kids and all of the portion for Hannah's. I told her that all these expenses are taking a hit on my finances, and she didn't even seem to care. She reiterated that my kids are my responsibility. To add insult to injury, she recently started contributing money to college funds for her kids, while Hannah and I have nothing saved for our kids' college. Hannah found out and asked that I start funds for our kids. When I talked with Stacy about this, she said this was fine, but I had to put the same amount of money in the funds she has set up for the kids. I told Stacy I need her to start paying her fair share of expenses around the household. I cannot afford to pay child support, household expenses, and all of these miscellaneous expenses that come up for my kids. It wouldn't hurt her financially, as she makes more than me and could easily spare some money. Stacy blew up and took our kids to her parents' house, and I haven't heard from her in a day and a half. Am I the jerk for demanding that she pay her fair share? You're the jerk. Stacy is paying half of the household expenses. Stacy is paying for majority of things for the 2 kids you have with her. Stacy is helping you with childcare for 3 kids that are not her own. Stacy does not have to contribute to their college funds. That is on you and Hannah to figure out. It's not her fault that neither Hannah or you thought about this until she was proactive about her kids' future. We recently went on a family vacation, and she demanded that I pay for half of the portion for our kids and all of the portion for Hannah's. How is this unreasonable? The only thing that is a little odd is that you're giving Stacy the same monthly amount that you give your ex. This is confusing to me. I suppose it makes me question where this money goes, how much money she lost in earnings when she was pregnant with the 2 kids, who paid the medical expenses, etc. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Some of these stories make me so glad that we don't have kids. They also make me glad that I'm not married to a complete idiot.
Am I the jerk for only inviting some of my sister's kids to my wedding? I, female 25, got married to my husband, male 25, in August. We kept it small and simple and didn't want too many guests due to budget, so we only invited close family members and friends. My older sister, Dawn, who's 38, has 10 kids. They're 17, 16, 14, 10, 9, 7, 5, 3, 3, and 1. My parents and the rest of the family aren't religious, but Dawn and her husband are very much so, and they believe that having lots of kids is God's will. Obviously, inviting all of my nieces and nephews would be quite a cost. My wedding wasn't child-free, but my husband and I decided it would be fairest if we only invited Dawn's eldest 3 kids. I talked to Dawn about it and explained our reasoning, but she was really offended and said that I'm picking favorites. I told her I'm sorry, but 10 kids is a big cost on our wedding budget and that we tried to be as fair as possible. Dawn accused me of being a bridezilla and thinking I'm too good for her and her family. I told Dawn if she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to come, but that she's my sister and I really want her at the wedding. Dawn, her husband, and 3 eldest did come to the wedding, but with other family members bringing their kids, everyone was asking her about why not all of hers were there. After the wedding, Dawn has been very off around me lately. She told me she understands how I feel about her babies and said I'm a bad sister and a terrible aunt and has accused me of not respecting her religion and lifestyle. My parents and other siblings have been making comments like, "Don't get too excited for XYZ. OP said only 3 people can come because there's too many of us." The comments have been getting to me a bit, and I'm wondering if I was the jerk. ETA, my husband and I paid for the wedding ourselves. I didn't want to ask my parents or Dawn for help with paying for anything because neither of them have a lot of money. If Dawn offered to help cover costs so that all of her kids could come, I wouldn't have had a problem. I might get downvoted for this, but not the jerk. If your sister was so upset, she could have offered to contribute towards the costs. A consequence of having a load of kids is that people aren't going to want to cater to all of them at events because it's a big cost. Edit. I agree this could have been planned better to prevent drama, as others suggested a blanket rule. But I don't think OP is a jerk, and I can see their logic behind it. Hindsight is 20/20. Not the jerk. She literally said it wasn't in the budget for 10 kids plus 2 adults. That's a family of 12. And for all the "you're the jerks" in the comments, how about y'all invite the family to your weddings? See how much that crap costs. Sorry, you're the jerk. Your sister and her huge family is part of her family. You asked her to exclude 7 of her kids in an event that celebrates family. Marriage is joining 2 families together. Also, 3-year-olds and 1-year-olds don't eat and drink that much for it to be a burden on you financially. I agree with Sis that you just don't see them as family since she has so many. Your niece and nephews lost the luster for you. You're the jerk. If you wanted to avoid the drama, you could have made the wedding completely child-free or 12 and up only. Otherwise, letting others bring their small kids but not letting your sister bring your nieces and nephews is just plain wrong. You're the jerk. If you had said no kids under this age, you would have been fine. However, you allowed other people to bring them. Come on, you gotta be kidding me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
10 kids? Bruh.
Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend I don't want the Christmas holiday to be all about her? I, 31 male, have been together with my girlfriend, 25 female, for 2 years now. We both live in London, UK together, but I'm originally from Czech Republic. I will visit my family in my home country next Christmas. My girlfriend also wants to come. Last night, we were looking for train tickets for her. I already booked my flight ticket separately. She's afraid of flying. While looking for dates, she told me she would like to arrive a few days before the actual Christmas, so she can relax and sleep a lot after the long train ride to prepare for the busy Christmas days. This really annoyed me. I told her I don't want this holiday to be all about her. I just want to have a good time with my family. She doesn't need to tell me how many days she needs to prepare and sleep, and that she will only have energy for 3 out of 7 days. I wish she would keep me out of that. This has been a theme for every holiday. She's often tired after a social activity and needs to have a day rest in between. I feel super limited by that. I just want to have a good time, not a girlfriend who's always tired. My family also thinks it's weird that she sleeps long and sometimes skips an activity when we visit to do something on her own. But now she's upset with me. She told me she's reconsidering coming at all for Christmas. She says I make her feel like she's not allowed to take up space, that it will only be a fun and conflict-free holiday if she pretends she has more energy than she has. And yeah, it's true that I sometimes want her to just get over it. I'm also tired sometimes, and I don't let that limit my life. It's so weird that I just want a peaceful holiday and her to leave me out of comments that she is too tired and wants to rest. Edit. Some of the comments are suggesting that my girlfriend has a medical condition, like chronic fatigue syndrome, that I forgot to mention. That is not the case. My girlfriend is just an introvert who gets overstimulated quickly in unfamiliar surroundings. With resting, I also don't mean sleeping for 3 days straight. Just some hours for herself, a walk, spending time with just me, etc. But often she will be in bed until like 11. You're the jerk. Bro, are you listening to how you're talking about this? At least you have a girlfriend willing to come to another country who's afraid of flying but will still make other arrangements just to come. I might add, to spend time with you and your family. You don't want to hear about how she has to rest? Social events take a lot out of people, some more than others, depending on how quickly you recharge. Cut her a break, she sounds lovely. You should be riding the darn train with her. She's willing to go to another country with you to visit your family. She's planning in advance to arrive early enough to rest and recharge before holiday events. She doesn't ask you to stay with her when she's not up for doing whatever is planned. She just needs more downtime than you and your family. I'm confused how, hey, I want to come down a few days early so I can sleep off the trip without it impacting Christmas, is making it all about her. She's actually trying not to be a problem by ensuring she's entering into the holiday rested and ready to go. So yup, you're the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Bruh. Am I the jerk for not allowing my husband to convert my office into a bedroom? My husband and I had kids before our marriage. He had 3 and I had 2. They're all over 30 now. We've known each other for 6 years. After my son left home, I rented the house and bought a smaller one with 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. One room being my office and another normal. My husband and I have lived together in my house for 2 years, and we split the bills half and half. But because my husband lost his old job and isn't earning as much at the new one, the bills are 3/4 for me. Our house is not in a good place to receive visitors, especially for a long time because they have to stay on a mattress in the living room. I don't let them sleep in the office because that's my place of work. Currently, I'm almost 80% of my appointments on video call. I'm a psychologist, so I need a reserved place, and there are a lot of patient documents, so no visits there. One of my husband's kids, Logan, who's 32, male, is visiting our country, 5 years abroad, and after staying at his mother's house, he came to see my husband. We invited him to stay for a few days. My husband is over the moon with Logan present, and although I say our house is not the best place for long visits, he insisted that Logan stay at home for another 2 weeks. The first week after that went fine, but Friday, my husband came to talk to me, suggesting that in these last days that Logan stays here, he stay in the office, put things against the wall, because he wants to accommodate his son better, and it's sad to see him not having the least privacy, even to sleep. I remembered my warning about not being the best place for this, and I'm not giving up my office because I work in it. He started to say that the comfort of a visitor should come first, and that I can use our room as a place of work, and he'll leave the room for that. It would only be a few days like this, 10 days. I was pretty annoyed, and I said, look, if my job is important to keep the house bills paid, then really work comes first. It's a few days, but 8 days I have patients all morning and afternoon. You knew the house wasn't the best place for this and insisted, so it's on you. But my office is essential to my work. He began to say that I was rubbing it in his face that I only support the house, but as my partner, I should be committed to helping my stepson get comfort. He's mad at me for keeping my answer, and honestly, I've never noticed anything from Logan. I just really feel that if the office were his place of work, it wouldn't be an option. Am I the jerk? The other 20% I work in another city for a clinic with these patients. Not the jerk. If you don't have a lock on that door, I'd get one. I wouldn't be surprised if you came back to find that he had moved things around anyway with how he keeps going on about it. Allowing people into your office is just asking for a data breach. If he doesn't understand by now how important that space is to your work, he never will. Not the jerk. I don't know Logan's financial situation, but if he gets in that room, he may never leave it. Every point you laid out is valid. You need to work. You need privacy. You could literally be violating HIPAA if you allow him access to the files. Am I the jerk for not wanting to compromise on my first home because of family? I, female 29, and my husband, male 32, are currently saving for our first house. We have 3 kids who are 5, 3, and 1, and I want at least a 3-bedroom, 1 for us, 2 to share amongst the 3 kids, and 2 bathrooms. My husband recently informed me that my mother-in-law is considering divorcing my father-in-law. My husband wants to change our house plan to include my mother-in-law moving in with us. We talked about what that would mean, and ultimately I decided I really don't want to do that, and it's caused a problem in our marriage. The reason why I decided against it is mainly because my mother-in-law would be taking full custody of her 10-year-old daughter, husband's half-sister, and we would also have to take mother-in-law's mom in, husband's grandmother. Mother-in-law is fine, but her daughter causes so much trouble and chaos. Many of my husband's aunts and cousins never visit anymore, and told me it's because of the problems this girl causes with the other kids in the family her age, and I don't like her being around my kids as well. Grandmother-in-law is also elderly and needs full-time care, which I can't provide since I work and I have 3 kids to take care of. I told my husband if this is what he wants, he can contribute more towards our savings and we can get a property with a back house for mother-in-law, her daughter, and grandmother-in-law. Husband doesn't want to contribute more money and instead suggested we keep our original plan, but keep 1 room for us and the kids, 1 room for grandmother-in-law, and 1 room for mother-in-law and her daughter. I said absolutely not, because the whole purpose of getting our own home was to have our own room, and our kids have their own room. We went back and forth, but my suggestions don't work for him, and his suggestions don't work for me. In the end, I suggested mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law move in with someone else, and my husband is upset that I suggested this. Mother-in-law's sister has a huge 5-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood 10 minutes away and only lives with her husband and adult son. My husband also has a younger brother, mother-in-law's favorite kid, who currently has a big 3-bedroom home with 2 living rooms and only lives with his wife and 1 daughter, who's 5. Brother-in-law also has more money saved up than we do and wants to upgrade to an even bigger home. I think these are both better options for mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law than my husband and I can possibly provide, but my husband hasn't been speaking to me lately because of this. Am I the jerk for not wanting to compromise our plan for our first home in order to accommodate family? Side note, mother-in-law has never had a job and doesn't plan on getting one, so we wouldn't be charging rent for anyone and would also have to pay for everyone's living expenses. Living situation would also be permanent since mother-in-law doesn't make money and therefore can't eventually move out. Husband and I also make the least amount of money in the family at a combined income of $50,000 to $60,000 a year. 4 adults, 4 kids, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, $50,000 to $60,000 total income? The math is not mathing. This is a recipe for disaster. Just conflict and not enough of anything to go around written all over it. I think all of your suggestions are sensible. Piling 8 people into a 3-bedroom and providing for them on your 2 combined earnings is not the jerk. Your husband's suggestion is so far out of line, I don't even know where to begin. Would your mother-in-law, her badly behaved daughter, and her elderly mother even want to live in a 3-bedroom with you? But that's irrelevant because it would be a horrible situation for you. Why would you want to fund that chaos? Your husband is being totally unreasonable and should at least talk to the family about all of the options. Not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Congrats, Reddit boy. Today's stories have triggered me much more than usual. I need a smoothie.
Karen is furious that she can't use our restroom. I work in a pet supply store in a large strip mall type area. For safety issues, our restrooms are for employee use only, locked with a keypad. This change happened the first week I started working there, so I never really asked any questions about it. We are literally a 30-second walk to several other stores that do have public restrooms. Me. Hi, is there anything you need help with? Customer.
I've been driving all day, and I really need to use the restroom.
She put extra emphasis on the all day part, and I could tell that she already knew our restrooms are not public, but she was trying to make me feel bad for her. Me. Oh, I'm sorry. We don't have public restrooms, but insert closest store name. Right next door does. Awkward silence for a moment. Me. Is there anything else I can help you with? Karen.
Where's the cat food?
Me. The next few aisles in that direction are all cat food. The next half hour includes her grabbing a single bag of cat food and then proceeding to walk around and have the exact same conversation with all of my coworkers. Every single one. She's yelling about how she's been driving all day and needs a restroom immediately. Interesting. You could have gone 20 minutes ago to the one next door. She comes back to the aisle I'm working on and meanders around a bit. Me. Is there something else I can help you with? Karen.
What I need help with is that I've been driving all day to get stuff from your store, and I just need to use the restroom.
She had a very common brand of cat food in her hand that she could have found in most grocery stores. Me. I'm so sorry, there's nothing I can do about that. She storms off yelling over the fact that she's spending money, so she should get to use our restroom. She's not the first one that's angry either. Common responses I get include, seriously? Are you kidding me? Or the classic eye roll. This happens at least twice a week. What's so special about our specific restroom that makes you need to use it? I'm just following the rules. I'd literally get in trouble if I let you use the restroom. My Karen neighbors and the cops are demanding to use my driveway. Going to begin by saying that legally I am in the clear. It's my property and I can do as I wish with it. I bought a piece of land and had a house built on it recently. There was a gravel road, now it's paved, that has become my driveway. I guess before I lived there, the locals used it to get around faster. I've been told that if they can't use my driveway, it makes the travel 15 minutes longer. This started when I moved in. The stuff like the yard and surrounding area was not finished, but it was complete enough to move in. My driveway is long and can be exited and entered from 2 sides. With how the house is built, for them to use my driveway as a shortcut, a lot of traffic would have to pass right by my house and cars every day. This isn't just people driving. People on bikes and walkers want to use it too. I simply do not want the whole town using my driveway every day. I realized it was a problem when I moved in and I could constantly hear cars driving through all hours of the night, or voices of people talking and people walking right past the cars. I understood that this property was vacant for a while, so I put up signs saying that this is private property. You can clearly see a house there, and I'm sure they saw it being built. No change. So I put up gates that only my wife and I have access to. It doesn't deter the walkers, but I have plans for that. This caused a big fuss. I've had numerous people knock on my door asking why I put a gate up, saying they will be late to school or work. I had a guy say I made him late to an interview. I just tell everyone that this is private property and that this house didn't just appear here. You saw the signs if this was a route that you use daily. Apparently, the police used this as a speed trap area, and I've had police ask me to open the gates. I tell them no. My wife normally is the type to let people use the driveway, but this wasn't normal. Imagine the whole town using it like a shortcut. There was so much traffic constantly. The first complaint I got before the gates were up was when I parked my car on the driveway and not on the part in front of my house because it was blocking the traffic. I responded, "The traffic on my property?" I've had cops tell me I'm obstructing their work. My direct neighbors understand, but town people are just upset that their shortcut is gone. They're all pretty upset about the house being here altogether. People would park their cars all over the driveway and my property during sporting events. High school football is important around here. I'm not trying to be an evil neighbor. Am I the jerk? Edit. For those wondering, yes, I've talked to lawyers and this is my property. I initially didn't want the two outlets because to me it looks odd. I only have one entrance to my driveway paved and the other one is gravel. I was just going to leave it, but now I will just remove the outlet entirely. My land is still under construction and there will be a fence going completely around my property. Not the jerk. It's your property and they can't use it anymore. They will just have to get used to going the long way around. If the locals wanted this road so much, then they should have had their town purchase the land and made it a public road. They didn't. Now they have to deal with it. Not the jerk. It's your home and your property. Seriously, building a home takes time. They should have realized things were changing. And the cops don't need to use your property as a speed trap. You're the jerk. This is why I disagree with the concept of private property. Because you want to make people's lives more difficult than they already are, you're trying to stop them from using a road that they've used since long before you arrived. Why can't you just be cool and respect that this is a helpful road to everyone? Except the police. I wouldn't let them use it either. I make their lives harder anytime I can because we just don't need them at all. But that's another story. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or everyone else? Please let us know.
Whenever you have trouble with people using your driveway and you want them to stop, nails can really come in handy.
My husband ate some of my chocolate, so I made him drive across the city to replace it. I'm 8.5 months pregnant and driving sucks, so my mom drives me around because my husband is working long hours to get ahead before the baby comes. Last month, she drove me to my favorite chocolate store and I stocked up on my favorite flavors. The store has dozens of flavors of chocolate individually wrapped in colorful foil so you can tell the flavor. The store is about an hour's drive away from our home. My husband knows my favorite flavor. Half the bag was originally that flavor, but by now it's just even with the others. He came home from work yesterday, and after supper we were going to sit and watch TV. I waddled over to the couch and asked him to please bring me 2 of my chocolates. He did, and he grabbed a few for himself. No problem there. He came back to the couch with chocolates in his mouth. When he kissed me, I knew what flavor he took. He admitted he took the stracciatella ones, my favorite. I got kind of upset, and he said it was no big deal. I could go with my mom and get some more. Yes, this company sells their chocolate everywhere, but that flavor, I've only ever seen this flavor in their store. I asked if he's been eating that flavor a lot, and his face told me everything I needed to know. I yelled at him that it's not like it's easy for me to sit in a car for 2 hours. He said he would go out right now and replace them. He hit a couple of stores and a couple of grocery stores, and they all told him the same thing. He drove across town and came back with a big bag of just that flavor. While he was gone, I called my mom, and she said I need to calm down because my hormones are making me crazy. I apologized to my husband, but he's still grumpy that he drove around for hours just to get me chocolate. I think he should know better than to eat my favorite flavor. I know this isn't as big a problem as some of the other stuff on here. Edit. My husband is wonderful, and he went out looking to replace my chocolate. After he didn't find it nearby, he chose to drive across town. I didn't force him to do it. When I said I made him do it, I meant he did it to make me happy. Sorry for any confusion. I clearly recall sobbing during my first pregnancy over a brand of potato chips that was discontinued, and my husband came home with an unsuitable, to me, replacement. It was ridiculous, and years later, we laugh about it. So will you. Best wishes for a smooth birth and a healthy baby. I vividly remember when I was pregnant with my son, ordering Hawaiian barbecue from a local restaurant, specifically the teriyaki beef. My partner went to pick it up, and they had forgotten to include the teriyaki sauce that comes on the side, but it also is what makes it so delicious. And, teriyaki. I cried hysterically and couldn't even rationalize why I was so upset. My partner, bless him, drove back to the store and came back with boatloads of teriyaki sauce. I'm not proud of that moment, in hindsight, but pregnancy really does make you a bit nuts, and food cravings are no joke. Not the jerk. In a year, you will both be laughing about this. This is the real marriage stuff no one talks about. You're a team. You're hormonal and pregnant. He went and got your special chocolate. I'd probably just start cracking jokes about it and say sorry for being a bit extra. You're the jerk. Wife yells at her husband. Haha, this is funny. Husband yells at wife. He's a monster, you need to divorce him, you deserve so much better. Wife says she made her husband do something or allowed him to do something. Nobody bats an eye. Husband says this kind of stuff, everyone loses their mind. Reddit in a nutshell. P.S. Being pregnant doesn't excuse you for acting like a total jerk. I'm so sick of hearing that it does. P.P.S. For all you geniuses who are upset by my comment, I'm a woman now in my 60s. I've had 3 pregnancies throughout my life and never felt the need to act like a jerk to anyone because I was pregnant. Sure, there were days where I felt horrible, but I never took that out on my husband or anyone else. Just because you don't feel good does not excuse you to mistreat others. I'd love to see how you bozos react to a story where the husband is sick and he's the one treating people like crap. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
If I were pregnant, I'd make you get me tendies every night, Reddit boy.
If you were pregnant, tendies would be the least of my worries. Am I the jerk for saying I don't want to be in the pictures at my wedding as the bride? My fiance's family never held back on jabs about my nose. My fiance said he knew they really loved me the moment they started with the jokes. They're the kind of family that loves to make fun of each other. My grandparents used to make comments about my nose that were kind of crappy. In general, I've tried to not be so sensitive about it because they don't like sensitive people. Although my history with it and knowing my nose came from my dad, who I don't know, made it a bit harder for me. My fiance made this comment once, which was supposed to be joking and sweet, where he basically said he was so lucky for my nose because it was the only way he had a chance with me. That comment stayed in my head since. The idea that I'd actually be beautiful if it wasn't for my nose. I've had really bad self-esteem, and I would go in and out of believing I'm ugly. I started thinking about having a nose job. After we got engaged, I realized if I was going to do it, I should do it before the wedding. He was really supportive of the idea and excited for it. He made some comments about being glad I was losing the beak, something he had never expressed before I suggested it, which confirmed to me that I needed it. My fiance loves my new nose. I hate it so much. I feel like I'm staring at someone else's face. I feel like any other woman in the world besides myself. I've always struggled with depression, and I was finally in a good place before this. Now I can barely get myself to leave my room for work. My fiance is really frustrated with me. He thinks I, objectively, look better, and I need to get used to it. I know I'll have to, but I've been wearing a medical mask in the house because I can't stand to look at my face. He says this is me sulking like a toddler, but I can't control how I feel. He asked what I was going to do at our wedding, and I told him that I don't want to be in any of the pictures. He freaked out, saying my selfishness was going to get in the way of us having a happy wedding. I didn't want to let this hurt him, so I tried to come up with options like wearing my veil covering my face in the pictures, incorporating a scarf into the outfit, wearing my mask, etc. And he said if I do any of that, we might as well not get married at all. That hurt a lot. I can't stand to see myself in pictures like this, and having everybody see my nose the whole day would make this even worse for me. I'm already going to be blaming myself for the fact that I won't have my nose in pictures. I feel like I'm ruining the day for him, but what he wants will ruin it for me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I thought I would add a comment I wrote to the post since I've seen a lot of people who are very worried about me. Thank you to everyone who's written comments trying to help me. Sorry I haven't responded to a lot of specific people. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm reading everyone's comments. Thanks so much to everyone who's given a judgment and advice. Everyone has been so kind to me at my lowest right now. I really need to get back into therapy. I'm trying to look into getting another nose job to reverse this, but I don't know if any plastic surgeon would be willing or able to give me the beak back, and I'm terrified of getting surgery again. I just want to feel comfortable in my skin again. As much as I know, logically, I should be able to get used to this over time, I really don't feel like I can. Everybody is suggesting we should postpone the wedding, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how my fiancé is going to feel about that. I love him, but a lot of these comments are making me think more deeply into how he treats me. He's this very sweet guy normally, introverted, very smart, always there when I need him, etc. But he's not being that guy right now. Not the jerk at all, but your fiancé is. His comment about the beak was stone cold cruel. His remark about your nose being the only way he'd have a chance with you is telling. He is superficial and shallow and inconsiderate, and I really hope you realize you deserve much better before the wedding rolls around. OP, this is way above Reddit's pay grade. You're engaged to be married to a man who, along with his family, has needlessly bullied you about your appearance to the point that you had plastic surgery to try to fix yourself. Not only do you regret the surgery now, but it, along with the bullying you've experienced, has destroyed your mental health. Do you truly want to spend the rest of your life like this? Do you really want to marry a man who giddily told you that he was happy you were getting rid of your beak, then admonished you for having regrets? Please take all of this into consideration and try to remember that your crappy fiancé and his equally crappy family don't get to determine your self-worth. Only you do. For all intents of this being a judgment sub, not the jerk, but you haven't been very kind to yourself either, and you will be the jerk if you don't remember who the heck you are and put a stop to your fiancé and his family's BS. Parents made every single birthday about my sister for the last 8 years. I'm 18 this year, and fairly recently on my own from my parents. I have a sister about 10 years younger than me. She was an unplanned pregnancy and didn't make it to term. I don't know many of the details of how rough my mother's second pregnancy was since I was never told much, but I do know that it was so hard on her body that my mother could no longer have kids after my sister was born. She was in and out of the hospital repeatedly that year. My mother almost didn't survive the birth either. It made her and my father latch on to my little sister because she could have potentially never been born. And ever since then, I felt like I was just the other kid in the house, except for when they needed me as a free babysitter. The level of favoritism my parents showed long-term has me believing they were genuinely sick in the head for not noticing exactly what it was doing to me, and now it's rebounding on them, which I'll explain here. Starting with my 11th birthday, my parents wanted me to let my sister blow out my candles because she was 2 years old and cried at the sight of a birthday cake that wasn't hers. I didn't want to do it, but my parents forced me into it. They relit the candles for me to do it again after her, but the moment felt completely ruined. The same thing happened the next year and the year after that, and so on and so forth. They just kept forcing it until it became the norm. My sister had to have presents on my birthdays as well. I never got any on hers either, and when I asked why, they just told me that I'm a boy, and boys don't need to worry about it as much. I know I was a kid, but did they really think that was a smart thing to say? Not really. And my parents would always choose a place my sister would like to be at more than me on my own birthday. Eventually, it became more like my sister was getting 2 birthdays a year and I got none. Beyond this, my parents made their entire lives revolve around my sister. If there's something I wanted to do, my sister had to want to do it too. Otherwise, it was vetoed, unless I could do it alone. I learned to just lock myself in my room with my video games because they didn't seem to bother me there. Unless my sister wanted to come running in to annoy me, hence why I put a lock on my door. My sister developed quite the princess complex because of how she was being spoiled on a daily basis, and she was very demanding. So I stayed away from her as much as I feasibly could. Whatever excuse I could use to not have to deal with her, even if I had to make stuff up just to have time to myself. My parents hired a teen girl babysitter and I got more personal time. And then the babysitter quit because my sister wouldn't listen to her, and my parents tried to keep from paying by saying that she did a bad job. The girl got some other people involved, and my parents finally paid her what they owed her. Then they hired another girl to babysit on the regular, and this one stayed. But my parents still made it clear that I was to be watching my sister any day I had free, which I went out of my way to be busy at my part-time job if I could. My sister treated me as her personal butler and ordered me around. She even had a stupid nickname for me she wouldn't stop using. Just hearing that nickname makes my blood boil, and if I didn't give her everything she wanted, she'd cry and call our parents. And then I'd be in trouble for mistreating her. We had many massive arguments because of this, and after I refused to yield anymore, my relationship with my parents devolved into barely any words spoken between us for some time. And yet, during my high school graduation, they had the nerve to brag to other parents that they were the reason I worked so hard. Well, they weren't wrong. But the reason they were thinking of was not the one that actually happened. I worked hard, just biding my time for when I'd be free. But my parents acted like they'd done so much. Maybe they did before my sister was born, but afterwards, it was all about her. They didn't even ask me about school until parent-teacher conferences came up. I graduated with a B and C average, and after my graduation, my parents just took me to some place where my sister would always have more fun than me, even though the trip was supposed to be for me. On my 18th birthday in July, though, things really boiled to the surface. Even though it was my 18th birthday, it didn't feel like it was about me at all. I hoped to God that we were going to my favorite restaurant for once, but no, they had the party at the local knockoff Chuck E. Cheese, which is the only place like it nearby to us. So it was the de facto celebratory destination whenever anything big was achieved, including my high school graduation. I did say it was a place my sister would enjoy more than me. I was surrounded by kids half my age having parties, and I was so bored with nothing to do but eat mediocre pizza and play claw machines and dated arcade games for tickets to cheaply made prizes that brought me no joy. Then when it was time for cake, my parents came out with one that was pink with white flowers on it. Sure, it had my name on it, but it was very obviously not a boy's cake, and there was only 10 candles. My parents lit the candles and set it right in front of my sister to blow out. That's when it finally happened. I just had this mental moment of all the pent-up hate mentally flashing before me, and then I just started ugly crying. I, an 18-year-old boy, was crying in front of the whole family. Everyone was so shocked that time seemed to just freeze. I got up, and all of the stuff I had been holding in me for the past 8 years just spilled out like word vomit. The entire family got to be witness at this event, and when it was finally over, I just walked outside to sit by the family car. Several relatives trailed out after me to say they were sorry, and that they didn't know about the pink cake because my parents kept it covered until it was served. I said it didn't matter that they didn't know. They all sat back and watched as my life was taken over by Little Miss Sunshine for the past 8 years. I had no real birthdays or celebrations of my own. They were all about her. And then, on the biggest birthday of my life, they all expected me to just smile and nod like always, while they handed my sister a cake that was entirely meant for her when it wasn't even her birthday. Some of them started giving me apologies, but they made the excuse that all this time they just thought I was okay with it because my parents said I was. I told them I was never okay with it, and my parents forced it on me every year, so I just pretended to accept it. I spread my arms out and said to look where we were. Does this look like a place I wanted to celebrate my graduation and 18th birthday? No one even tried to stick up for me all this time. I'm just the other kid while my sister gets everything. I didn't even get to have any of my friends there because my parents stopped letting me invite them long ago after they tried to voice their opinions over my sister getting to blow out my candles. There are 365 days a year, and was it so bad to want one that was about me and not her? Instead, I'm treated like the greedy entitled brat for wanting my own birthday. Then I just went back to ugly crying. My father came outside by that point to yell at me for making such a huge scene, because my mother was crying too. My sister was upset because I ruined her moment, and now everybody in there who saw thinks they're bad parents. I ended up yelling at him that they are bad parents, and he should know exactly why. Well, after I said that, the rest of the family descended on him like a pack of wolves. Better late than never, I suppose, but I'd never seen anything like it before. My father was practically backed right up to the restaurant front door, and then most of the crowd flooded back inside with him to have it out with my mother too. My grandparents stayed with me and apologized for having their eyes shut so tight for so long. I don't know what was said to my parents in the restaurant, but it was roughly a half hour before they came back out, and when they did, they looked incredibly defeated. My mother was still sniffling after crying so hard, and neither of my parents could look me in the eyes. They both awkwardly apologized for what they did, and then offered to redo the party somewhere else. But that wasn't really enough for the crowd. One of my uncles ahemed rather loudly, and my parents said they'd never make me let my sister blow out my candles again, or give her presents on my birthday, or make any part of it about her. There was another ahem, and my parents also apologized for getting a cake that was obviously not even meant for me, and that they felt like I wasn't worried about cake anymore at my age. Oh boy, was that the wrong thing to say. I became furious all over again and yelled at them that my age was irrelevant. They had literally given my birthday to my sister and had no good reason as to why, and they knew it. Then I said there was no point in redoing the party because it's too darn late. They clearly showed that I mean nothing to them. They ruined 8 years of my life till I became an adult. What future birthdays with them could I possibly look forward to? Well, my father started to get angry at me for saying that, but when the entire family yelled at him, he shut up. My grandfather told him I'm exactly right, and there is no possible way they can undo the damage done now. He said my parents were awful people, played favorites, and treated me like a black sheep ever since my sister was born. And what's more, they were all awful themselves because they just let this happen too, and I'm owed far more than an apology. I was owed my life back. My mother broke down again and tried to come closer to me while crying my name and apologizing, but I refused to let her anywhere near me, and half the family blocked her from getting close. I just said I couldn't take this anymore and started to walk away. One of my aunts chased me down and brought me back. I could hear multiple family members yelling and going off on my parents over what had happened, but I was so upset I couldn't even feel happy for any bit of the justice after all this time. Also, where was my sister when this was all going on? She was still in the restaurant, all by herself, eating cake and ripping open presents that were there for me. And if anyone was wondering, yes, my parents served her some cake after I cried and walked out. You'd think doing that wouldn't be their primary focus in the moment, but they were called out on it later. My grandparents got me to calm down and sit in their old minivan while everyone else cleared out the party. My sister threw a huge tantrum after being caught opening my presents, one of which was a brand new smartphone that she threw against the wall and broke because she wasn't allowed to keep it. She literally just got a brand new phone on her own birthday a few months earlier. I ended up being so upset that I was ranting that I never wanted to celebrate my birthday again, and my grandparents let me stay the night over at their house. When I came home, I still didn't speak to my parents. My mother just kept crying because I wouldn't talk to her, and my father was as closed-mouthed as me. The following weekend, my grandparents convinced me to go with them out to dinner, and when we got there, I was surprised to find a whole new party waiting for me. My parents were there, and they kept up with having the "don't hate us" smiles on their faces almost the entire time. There was a big chocolate cake with 18 candles on it, and there was even a banner with my name. They called it my happy belated birthday graduation party because I didn't really get either this year. I did kind of have to pretend to be happy. One good party doesn't undo 8 years of favoritism or even make a dent in it, really. And where was my sister? She was sitting at the table with her arms folded and her lip curled because it wasn't all about her like it used to be. And rather than sing happy birthday for me, they just sang an altered version of Happy Day. Then as soon as I blew out the candles, my sister screamed. I mean an ear-bleedingly loud scream. My parents had to rush her out and then bring her back in later, looking more upset than ever. She quietly pouted in her seat for the rest of the party. I did still get a new smartphone as well, and my sister got hers taken away, among other things, for what she did at the prior party. But the smartphone wasn't all. The whole family had chipped in and gotten me a car. It was just an old white Volvo, but I loved it the moment I laid my eyes on it. My grandfather knows a thing or two about cars and fixed it up himself. I was so happy, but my sister clearly was not, because she let out another one of those screams. She started having a massive tantrum and demanding a car too. My mother had to take her into the bathroom and they didn't come back out for a while. My father just went back to looking defeated. My sister had effectively ruined their attempt at trying to look good in front of the whole family. Multiple family members also had strong words for my parents that my sister was acting that way because they raised her to be a princess spoiled brat. I obviously started driving the car around right away, but only days later my sister actually vandalized the car by taking a hammer and breaking 2 of the side windows and cracking the windshield to the point that the car was undrivable. My parents managed to stop her before she did any more damage, but she screamed when they grabbed her and took the hammer away, then tried to bite them. Oh, everyone was furious with my sister, especially my grandparents, because my grandfather had put so much work into that car and my sister ruined it while having a massive tantrum. My grandparents had spoiled my sister so badly that she couldn't mentally comprehend that I could have something she couldn't, and several other family members laid into my parents about how they were setting my sister up for failure by making her an entitled brat that expects the world to be given to her. And she's going to have a terrible adult life because they won't put their feet down and teach her some respect. Well, her actions didn't go unpunished. My sister was grounded for the rest of the summer, and effective of the next school year was being sent to boarding school. My mother cried like a baby about that too, but my father had to be adamant that it was the only way to start undoing the damage they had done. Yes, they fully acknowledged they are at fault. It was kind of hard for them not to, since no one sided with them at all. My sister is absolutely miserable at that school. She hates the clothes, she hates the rules, and she's been lying almost constantly. But with cameras almost everywhere now, she's not getting away with any of it. Our parents tried to visit her a few times, but she screamed at them for putting her in that place. From what I hear, this may be her school life until she's 18 years old. My parents did pay to fix the car. They had an auto glass company replace the windows and windshield, and it looks just like it did before. In August, my grandfather came to me and said if I was interested, he found me a job working for a friend. It was 40 miles away, so I'd need to move out of my parents' house unless I wanted that commute. I was all for moving. Finding a first apartment wasn't so easy though. I had to get approved for a credit card just to get accepted for a studio. But I got it, and I've been living where I am now since September. My parents keep trying to contact me, but I rarely speak to them. Anytime we do speak, I just feel awkward and uncomfortable. My grandfather has suggested that they simply don't want to acknowledge how badly they failed as parents, and trying to get me to forgive them will make them feel better about themselves or something like that. But I'm not going to forgive, not anytime soon. I'm finally happy and away from them. Now they've got nothing. They don't have me, and they don't have my sister. And my parents had to take more hours at work because boarding school for my sister is not cheap. Nor can I imagine was the party they had to throw for me, or the repairs to the car. Empty house, angry relatives, and the only thing they have left is their work. Feels like incredible misery to me, and I don't take delight in it. But it is the result of their own actions after all. Am I the jerk for moving out because I don't want to help my boyfriend out with the rent? My boyfriend, 26 male, and I, 24 female, have been together for 3 years. We live in New York City, and he makes over $200,000 a year, while I'm studying for my master's in social work and have no income. Right now, I'm doing an unpaid, year-long internship 3 days a week, as well as classes 2 days a week. It's rare to get a paid internship in social work, plus internships are mandatory. I spend 12 hours every day either working, studying, commuting, or in class. My only free days are on weekends, so I have no time for a paid job. My mom helps me financially by paying for my Metro card and healthcare expenses, but everything else I rely on loans. Before I moved in with my boyfriend, there was a roach infestation in my apartment, so I'd stay over at his place a lot. My lease was ending soon, so he asked me if I wanted to live with him. At first, I joked with him that his living standards would go down since I can't afford a nice place, but he insisted on paying the rent until I finished grad school. Then we would split the rent based on income. I originally wanted to live in a cheaper place in Queens or Brooklyn, but my boyfriend likes his current place and insisted I move in since he would be the one paying the rent. So I moved into his $5,000 a month luxury condo in the city this August. All of a sudden, my boyfriend recently started asking me to pay half of the rent, $2,500 a month. I was confused because he was the one who wanted to pay the rent in full. Apparently, he was talking to his friends, and they all think it's weird that I don't pay rent and that I was a gold digger. I let my boyfriend know that I can't afford $2,500 a month, and he said I was leeching off of him. So I told him that he should find someone within his social class so he doesn't have to worry about a gold digger like me leeching off of him. I stayed at my friend's place for a few days while figuring out what to do. I called my mom about my situation, and she's willing to help me out, but the maximum she can afford for rent is $800. I found some places in Queens within the price range, less than 15 minutes away from the city and a bus ride away from my school, so I went to check them out a couple days ago. I've been texting the landlord and my new roommates, and I already signed the lease. I told my boyfriend about my new place, and he got upset and asked me to stay. He said that he was willing to accept $800 a month instead of $2,500 a month if that's all I can afford. But I told him I don't want him changing his mind again and demanding more money from me in the future. He lived in this condo alone for several years, so it's not like he can't afford to live there without my help. I wouldn't mind splitting rent with him, but I would have to live in a more affordable place outside of Manhattan like I originally wanted. Apparently, some of our mutual friends think I'm being unreasonable for moving out instead of talking to him and staying by paying the amount I can afford in rent, and that I shouldn't have let him pay my portion of the rent. Update. Yes, I did dump him. I blocked him and his idiot friends on everything. My friends also blocked him since he tried to contact me through them. I'm going to enjoy being single and never relying on a man financially ever again. Not the jerk. They think you're being unreasonable? That's Rich. He literally convinced you to move into his apartment, turning down your offers to find a cheaper place so you could contribute. The fact that his friends see you as a gold digger and don't appear to know the full story, the fact that you offered to pay and to find a cheaper place and he insisted otherwise is also a red flag to me and makes me question how he talks about you to his friends. My Karen wife tried to force my mom to eat her cooking. My mom is not a picky eater. She will eat almost anything unless it has ketchup on or in it. Also, growing up, I was never made to eat anything. It was my body, my choice, and she would make me a second meal. I'm not sure my wife knows about the ketchup thing, as she has only cooked for my mom a few times and it just didn't come up. The two of them cannot stand each other, so I have greatly cut back on how often I see my mom. But recently, she was invited over to meet our daughter, and my wife asked if she wanted to stay for dinner as we were catching up and I don't see her often. My mom agreed, but when she realized we were having meatloaf with ketchup topping, she only took mashed potatoes and zucchini. My wife questioned her, and my mom said she doesn't eat meatloaf due to the ketchup. My wife said, as a guest, you just eat it. My mom said she was sorry if someone raised my wife to believe that. My mom tried to sit down and eat her vegetables, but my wife blew up and demanded she eat the meatloaf. My mom said if she put any on her plate, she would throw it. I told them both firmly to stop, and my wife demanded that I defend her. I told her to just leave my mom alone and let her eat what she wants to. My wife began to yell at me that I need to defend our home and family. My mom then said she was done and walked out. I asked her to stay, but she just walked out, and my wife did not speak to me for the rest of the night. The way I see it, everyone should be able to turn down food for any reason, and everyone is entitled to some foods they absolutely will not eat. Not the jerk. And that's a big red flag on your wife's part. She's not respecting your mom's personal boundaries, choices, and autonomy. As a guest, you just have to eat it? I wouldn't be a guest for another second. Your wife is unhinged. Not the jerk. I'm sorry she's treating your mother this way. She's going to do the same thing to your kids too. You know that, right? You better get this figured out now. Not the jerk. As a guest, you just eat it does not sit right with me. And the guest is not obligated to eat everything. What if they're allergic to something? Your wife would be responsible for it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP's wife or his mom? Please let us know.
OP's wife needs to take a chill pill. Growing up, the only thing that I would eat was tendies, and if my parents threw a fit about that, I crayoned all over the wall.
Am I the jerk for That was funny. Crayoned all over the wall. Am I the jerk for expecting my son to share his room? Background. My 40 female, husband 40 male, and I bought a 3-bedroom house a few years ago, shortly before lockdown. We, of course, took the master bedroom, and the other 2 bedrooms went to our kids, who were then 12 and 10. We put a very nice double bed in the larger room and a single bed in the smaller room, and told them both that they could choose their rooms, but whoever ended up in the larger room may be asked to share or relocate for visiting family members, while whoever ended up in the smaller room would have it to themselves always. We almost never have family over. Hubby and I are both only kids, and our parents are in other provinces. So we were surprised when our older daughter chose the smaller room and our younger son chose the larger room. But okay, they worked it out between themselves. Both seemed happy with the choice, so okay. And it has remained that way for a couple of years. Now, we have a 4-day weekend coming up. My kids are now 15 and 12, and my mother decided to come down to visit. Of course, we told her okay, my husband and I, as we hadn't seen each other in a while, and I told our son, with the larger room and bed, that Grandma would be here for a few days and would be using his bed. Well, my son threw a fit. He didn't want to share a room with Grandma, not even on an air mattress, Not even for 3 nights. She smells funny. So we reminded him of the original deal and offered to put the air mattress in the living room. But that wasn't enough. He'd have no privacy there. His sister offered to let him put the air mattress in her room, which she wasn't required to do, and that wasn't okay either. My husband and I offered to let him put the air mattress in our room, and he said no to that, because sharing a room with your parents, ugh. God bless the privilege, but whatever. Finally, I put my foot down and said, the condition of you having the bigger room was that you would give it up for visiting family members. So one way or another, you're sleeping on an air mattress for 3 nights. You can choose if the air mattress goes in your room or our room or the living room, or literally any room in this house, but you are sleeping on an air mattress while Grandma is here. Shortly after that confrontation, my husband came to me and suggested that we encourage my mom to stay in a hotel. I asked him who was going to pay for that hotel since she can't afford it. We can't afford to put her up, and he went silent. Now he's calling me the jerk for forcing our son to give up his room for all of 3 nights and suggesting that I tell my mom not to come at all since apparently none of us can afford it. Edit. I sincerely appreciate everyone's comments and judgments, but I have officially reached the point where every time I look at my notifications, it adds 2 every second without me even having to hit refresh. Clearly, I should have posted this on my main account since apparently Reddit karma is important in some way. To follow the common Am I the Jerk trend and respond to some common themes. 1. Why don't I offer my own and my husband's bed to my mom? My husband has back problems, so also cannot viably sleep on an air mattress. I will not be going into detail on this. I also assume that it will be incredibly obvious to everyone why it is not viable for my husband and my mother to sleep in one together, while I sleep on an air mattress. Not to mention that she would never allow me to give up my bed for her as a visitor. 2. Why doesn't my mom sleep on the couch or air mattress? She's 83 years old. Need I say more? 3. Anything involving my son and daughter switching rooms. My daughter is willing to help in the short term, but she seems a bit smug right now about the overall room choice, so she has no desire to switch rooms. And I will not force her, because what kind of parent would I be if I hold my son to the letter of his deal, but go back on my word to my daughter? You may decide I'm the jerk, and I'll accept that, but I'm not a hypocrite. 4. I'm fully aware of the privacy that my son needs. We've had that conversation, and at the prompting of a couple of commenters. I have also recently asked my husband if there was a private conversation between him and my son that would in some way change the situation. He said no. Since I do not currently have any reason to believe my husband would lie to me outright, I'm considering that conversation closed. 5. Rest in peace, my DMs, apparently. I didn't know that happened to 40-something married moms, but please know that I'm not interested. Not the jerk. Your son sounds a bit entitled if he can't survive 3 nights on an air mattress while his grandmother is there. Expecting him to share a bed or a room with her would be excessive, but there are presumably other spaces in a 3-bedroom house where he could crash. Edit. To all the people saying you're the jerk because a 12-year-old needs privacy, safe space, etc., I can't help but think how entitled a society we've become. In the past decades, 2 to 3 kids would share a room through their entire child and teenage years. And even today, there are tons of kids living in miserable conditions in slums, refugee camps, and other similar situations. And OP is being called a jerk for telling her son that he has to vacate his room for 3 nights while his 60 or 70-something-year-old grandma visits so that she doesn't have to sleep on an air mattress or stay in a hotel? Just wow. I second this. People are also forgetting that this was a pre-made arrangement. If the son didn't want to share, he could have picked the smaller room. But no, he wanted the bigger one, so he needs to abide by the condition put in place. Like, it's 3 days. He needs to get over himself, acting as if it's for 3 months. Not the jerk. This sub is obviously full of kids who think 3 days on an air mattress, which he agreed to, is akin to some form of mistreatment that will leave him scarred well into his adult life. I think he can give his grandmother his bed and stop being a brat, which nothing against him, but is fairly typical kid behavior. I occasionally had to do the same for my grandparents. In hindsight, it was obviously the right call. You're not putting your elderly parents on a darn air mattress. That's insanity. Not the jerk. You've made the conditions clear, and now he isn't happy that they're happening to him. For context, I'm the oldest of 3 and had a similar arrangement. I chose the biggest and best room after my parents, which also had a bathroom next door that essentially became my private bathroom. The arrangement was that I was always the one who had to give up the room to guests, also because I got a double bed. While I didn't love giving up my room, I understood that was the price of having such a good room to begin with. Also, I usually would give up my room for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. A 4-day weekend is nothing. Your son got the room he wanted and is now looking to renege on the deal. You've given him various options, but it's clear he simply does not intend to keep his word. Your husband thinks the person to compromise to his tantrums is your guest, but there is another option. He loses the room entirely and it goes to your daughter going forward. You're the jerk. I'm a certified youth counselor. I work with kids and parents on a day-to-day basis. If there's one thing that kids absolutely need, it's a safe space where they can have privacy. By invading your son's safe space and forcing him to share a room with his grandma, someone he doesn't even like, you're doing him a huge disservice that I guarantee you will cause lifelong issues. I tell parents, as a general rule of thumb, if you don't have a spare bedroom, then don't allow family to stay at your house for anything longer than a day visit. What you're doing is showing your son that your feelings and his grandmother's feelings are more important than his, which will cause him to resent you both. There's been so much research that has gone into what makes kids go no contact with their parents once they leave home, and this is exactly what you're setting yourself up for. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for not putting your son first. If you refuse to trust the clinical studies that have been done, how about trusting the adult child of a family where this exact same thing happened to me? My grandpa Ed would stay over all the time, and I was forced to share my room with him. I hated the way he always smelled like cheese. And the sound of when he spoke. He sounded so old. I cringe now just thinking about it. He never stopped talking and always had boring black and white shows on my TV. I got so fed up with him that one night I made sure that this would never be a problem again. Nobody ever found out what I did, and I never regretted it. My dad fell into a deep depression and started drinking because his father was pretty much his best friend. But that's what happens when you cross the wrong person. Don't be surprised if you end up in the exact same situation. I wouldn't blame your son one bit.
Dude, did this guy do what I think he did?
Yowza canalza. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their son? Please let us know.
I think that last commenter was the jerk. They should be locked up.
Don't want to pay me for my work? All right, I'll undo it. I'm naming the company name because I've had many issues with them, and everyone should be warned. So, have to say this first. Beware of working for the delivery service Shipped. Today, I picked up an order for delivery. It had gone promo, money added on Shipped. It was for delivery in a town that is 15 minutes from the store of purchase. Alright, not too bad for $16, especially since I live within 10 minutes of the town I was delivering to. I take it. I go to the store, receive the groceries, and I'm on my merry way. I send a text to the customer that I'm on my way and will reach them before this time. No response, so I give a quick call. It does a weird thing and ends. Doesn't even go to voicemail. Huh, whatever. I sent them a text. Get to the house, knock, no answer. Leave the bag outside the door and I walk away. Make it to my car, start the car. The woman pokes her head out on the porch door as I'm about to leave. You were very lovely, woman on the porch. Thank you for your kindness. Waves me down, looking highly confused. So I, unfortunately, stop the car and get out. The woman asks what this is. Why, your order, ma'am, I say, looking all happy. I didn't order anything, she says. Oh no. Did anyone else in the house? Nope. Oh no. So there's a wrong address on the delivery. I've never dealt with this before, and I have to leave to catch a movie with friends in 30 minutes. Cue me going door to door at each house on that small street while reaching out to Shipped support, and while trying to call the customer again. Does the same weird thing with the phone. I give up on that. I proceed to knock on doors. Nope. Nobody's. Alright. Shipped's suggestion? Just drive back and return it. No, Shipped. I'm a delivery contractor. I'm not a volunteer, nor am I a charity. I'm hired by you to fulfill deliveries. As far as I'm concerned, I've delivered to the address on file. I'm not reaching into my bank account to correct someone else's mistake. For the total extra 30-minute round trip, I'll need $10 on top of the initial pay. Thanks, gas, for being so expensive. No, they say. We'll give you $8.10. No, I say. I have plans now in 10 minutes that I will have to miss. $8.10 will not cover the gas and wear and tear for the extra 30 minutes. I will need no less than $10, or I will leave them on the curb of the noted delivery address. We'll give you $5 and can't do any more than that, they say. Wait, I say. $5 on top of the additional $8.10 to make it $13.10 on top of what I'm being paid, or just $5? I want everything in writing specifically because I knew Shipped was going to do exactly what they did next. Oh yes, $13.10, but we can't do any more, they say. Fine, I'm returning it to the store now, I say. Go to the store, do the whole return process, get in contact with Shipped as they directed me to with the requested information. Get a message on my phone from Shipped to the effect of, your order has been canceled and $20.80 issued to your account. What? I contact Shipped, say I'm confused, say it looks as though they were only giving me $5 on top of the original order payment when they said I would be compensated with $13.10. I was told, oh, we won't give you any more than $5. But you already said, is there someone else I can speak to? Nope, $5. Take it or leave it. All right, fine. Don't want to pay me the agreed upon wage? That's a breach of contract, meaning you never actually paid me for this return. So what did I do? I marched right back into the store. Asked the worker who had taken the return that she had just gotten done with. I snatched the bag up, strode up to the manager, informed them of what happened, and told them since I wasn't being paid to return the groceries, I would be taking them back to the last place I was contracted and paid to deliver them. I told him if he wanted to be recompensated for the groceries, he could charge Shipped, as they were not willing to pay to have them returned. Message Shipped from my car, informing them of this, and gave them 30 minutes. Yep, my plans were now ruined. It's now 2 hours later. To rescind their rescission and pay me what they actually agreed to and owed me. Had to reach out 2 separate times because the first girl, despite my being very polite, would not go to anyone else, such as management, to ask for an exception to this policy, considering they had literally told me they would pay me more. Actually had the gall to ask if I had taken items I had returned, and all I had to say in response was, did you pay me to return them? Second girl was much more helpful. Reached out to her team to see if anything could be done. Shipped still wouldn't be swayed, but I thanked her profusely for at least trying. So in the end, they said they wouldn't do any more than $5. I told them, all right, I reject that offer. Just pay me the original delivery because $5.80 is where they'll be. You can pay another Shipped shopper $15 to come get them. Drove back. It was on my way home. Dropped them off and left. I'm not a charity. I don't work for free, and I certainly don't pay to work. I'm going to be messaging ShopRite Corporate directly along with New Jersey Labor Board because this is not the first issue with wages I've had with Shipped. And honestly, ShopRite should seek compensation from them. Have fun paying for the more than $13.10 of groceries that are now rotting on the curb, Shipped. Side note, to anyone who may say you're being entitled, no, I'm not. It's not entitled to expect an agreed upon wage. It's extortion to expect me to work for less than agreed. Imagine you accepted an order from a delivery service, fulfilled that obligation, and suddenly they decided to pay you less than half for that completed order. Or you're working at a job and they suddenly cut your pay without any notice or agreement upon your part. As I explained to them, I never would have returned the groceries for $5 because it wasn't my mistake. Would have returned them no problem if it had been, and I would be paying to return them. Plus the missed plans, plus the lost time. So no, I am in no way in the wrong, and I don't care what anyone who thinks otherwise has to say. Am I the jerk for telling my son I can't trust him? I have 3 kids, a 15-year-old son and 8-year-old twin daughters. They all get along well, and my son loves his sisters and vice versa. Sometimes my husband and I have to go to certain events, and I ask my son if he can watch his sisters for the night. He usually says yes, unless he has plans. I just ask my mom then. So on Friday night, we had an event to go to, and I again asked my son if he'd be willing to babysit. He said sure, and that was it. We came back at around midnight, and I went to check on the kids, and my son was fast asleep, while one of the twins was throwing up, and the other one was crying. I was surprised, but I also didn't really blame my son in any way. They weren't really making any noise, and were clearly asleep before all heck broke loose. Well, I managed to calm them down, and they ended up telling me how their big brother was really mean and grumpy all day, and when they asked for food, he gave them a jar of peanut butter. The twins cannot have peanut butter. They aren't allergic, but it makes them sick. The girls know as well, but they were hungry and said that they had to eat it. My son knows this, and the peanut butter is kept out of the twins' sight and reach, and is literally only in the house for him. I woke him up the next morning and asked him if all of this was true. He just made a noise and was all like, "Those little snitches. Yeah, so they had a little peanut butter. What's the big deal?" I told him that he knows they can't have it, and not only that, but I also don't like how they described his attitude, especially when he told them that they had to eat it. He just told me to stop overthinking. He forgot peanut butter makes them that sick. He only said they had to eat it because he didn't want them going hungry. He didn't feel like ordering, cooking, or warming up leftovers either, and also the twins were being annoying. I told him that these excuses are not good enough, and that what he did was honestly kind of cruel. I told him that I don't know if I can trust him anymore like this. He just rolled his eyes and told me that I'm being really dramatic and that the twins will be fine. I don't need to act like this. He's really upset with me, and every time me or his dad say anything, he'll just reply with,
"Oh, I thought I was cruel. I thought you couldn't trust me."
He's not budging, and he's not normally like this, so I'm wondering, am I the jerk? My sister told me to post on here since I'm so conflicted. Didn't think it would hurt. Not the jerk. Please take all the peanut butter out of the house. They are allergic. Just because it doesn't show in the well-known ways doesn't mean that they aren't. That's the thing with allergies. Sometimes the symptoms are mild, sometimes they're serious. You're very, very lucky that their reaction wasn't much worse, especially with that much peanut butter. It's lucky you came home to throwing up and crying, and not just crying or silence. Am I the jerk for missing my father-in-law's funeral after my mother-in-law booked my husband first class, but me economy? Me, 31 female, and my mother-in-law don't have a close relationship. She's civil towards me, but can be a bit passive-aggressive at times, and we tend to disagree oftentimes. We live in a different state. Father-in-law passed suddenly, and mother-in-law told me and my husband to come attend the funeral. She booked our tickets to fly to her state, but the issue started when my husband told me that we couldn't sit together on the plane because his mom had booked him a first-class ticket while I got economy. I was flabbergasted by this. I tried asking him why, but he urged me to suck it up and we'll talk about it later. In that moment, that particular moment, I felt so much humiliation and contempt. I felt like she was treating me as less than, even in her hard times. I decided to not go and just go back home. My husband was shocked by my decision to go home and tried to convince me to just go, but I declined. He went alone and I ended up missing the funeral. He was livid, just calling me and texting me nasty things, calling me petty and spoiled. He said that I should be grateful his mom paid for my ticket to begin with, then said that she doesn't owe me a darn thing. I argued about how she could have just booked us both in economy if money was an issue, but he called me pathetic for thinking about it when his dad had just passed. He said it was cruel what I did, and that his mom and family will never forget that I missed the funeral over ridiculous reasons. Am I the jerk for going home over this? ETA. One of the reasons I didn't settle for the economy ticket was because I wanted to sit next to my husband and support him. He sobbed the whole ride to the airport, and I didn't want to leave his side. I was shocked when he told me we couldn't sit together, and how he said it like he had no issue with it. Everyone sucks here. The seat issue was more important than supporting your husband after the passing of his father? This is exactly the point. Obviously, mother-in-law is a jerk and her actions were uncalled for and petty, but you made your husband go to his father's funeral without the support of his spouse, and you did this over a first-class seat. You played right into your mother-in-law's hands and may have caused irreparable damage to your marriage. You're the jerk. Yes, it was very crappy for your mother-in-law to book you in economy class while your husband was in first class. But you let a petty quarrel with your mother-in-law prevent you from supporting your husband when he needed you the most. Your husband has every right to be upset. You basically told him that your grudge against your mother-in-law is more important than supporting him. Edit. No, I won't say everyone sucks here. The husband doesn't suck, and the mother-in-law just lost her lifelong partner, has to pay for plane tickets for 2 people, and she wanted to pay a little treat to her son. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt that she did this to spoil her son, not to upset you. Everyone sucks here. Your mother-in-law won. It was most likely her intention to cause a fight, and she won because you didn't go. Now she gets to bash you to everyone for not attending. You didn't support your hubs when he needed it. So now all the nasty things she whispers in his ear while he's there, he's going to agree with regarding you. You were put into a losing situation either way. The whole thing sucks. Sorry this happened to you. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not going or not? Please let us know.
I'm sure her husband could have offered to switch with whoever was sitting next to her, and they probably would have been glad to take his first-class seat. When you have problems, there are always solutions. You just need to look for them.
The only time I left a 0 tip. It was today. I'm a server at a busy downtown restaurant, and I usually have time to make some coffee at home before work. Yeah, I could drink the coffee at work, but I like my Cafe Bustelo rather than what we have at the restaurant. Just a personal preference. It's what got me through undergrad alive, so they forever have my allegiance. Today, making a fresh pot at home just wasn't going to happen because I slightly mismanaged my time. Had to do a company meeting thing with some higher-ups and also squeeze in a vet visit for my new kitten before work. Time got a little tight, so I ended up heading into my shift entirely uncaffeinated. No worries, while I don't particularly love energy drinks, I figured I'd just pop across the street and grab one at the corner store. I do so, and when I check out, it's with one of those mini iPads with a card reader. I get my energy drink and a pack of smokes for after work, and when I put my card into the reader, it automatically prompts me to leave a 15, 20, or 25% tip. I'm almost 36 years old, and my income has been primarily dependent upon tips for basically the entirety of my adult life. I understand this, and I strive to always pay it forward. I start at 40% in a full service setting and only go down if you mess up colossally. Even then, it basically takes outright mistreatment for me to go south of 25%. I tip 20% on takeout. I tip 25% on delivery. Heck, I almost always throw the person working the window at Taco Bell or Cookout a 5 just for being open when I want to eat some garbage after work. This was the first and only time in my entire life where my whole being went, "Are you kidding me?" when being asked for a tip. Now, thankfully, the guy working the register sighed and reached over to me to hit the custom tip button and then hit 0. He looked at me and sighed. "Sorry about that, man. We just got this new point of sale like 2 days ago, and the owners haven't figured out how to disable that step yet." I just gave him a shrug and a, "Nah, it's all good, man." But darn if I didn't get hot for a split second, thinking that the corner store would have the audacity to ask for a tip for ringing up an energy drink and a pack of smokes. So yeah, technically, that's the only time I've ever been given the option to leave a tip and was totally fine with it being 0. Tipping culture is quickly becoming a scam. I'm asked to tip everywhere now. It's just one more way corporations are hiking up their consumers' costs to supplement the crappy wages they pay employees. Yup, it really is everywhere. I'm not tipping someone to make me a coffee in a drive-thru, and I'm certainly not tipping at the gas station when I have to pump my own gas. I tip for personal service stuff and delivery, and that's it. I'm gonna have to draw the line at tipping at gas stations too. I really snubbed a bartender with a 20% tip last night. I always tip big. I gave her the benefit of the doubt the time before. Bad day, tired maybe, but she's incredibly rude and ignores me. She acts like I'm really disturbing her if I ask for a drink. I couldn't bring myself to give less than 20%, but I really wanted to.
So the bartender was really rude to you the whole night. This wasn't the first time it's happened, and you still gave her a 20% tip? Dude, I am so done with you Reddit people.
My Karen sister-in-law thinks she can kick me out of my own beach house. 12 years ago, our grandparents passed, leaving their beach house to me, 37 female, and my brother, 35 male. The place is within drivable distance of my town. My work is such that I can do it remotely a lot of the time. I now have 2 small kids. Because of these factors, through the years, I've been in the beach house much more, basically summering it in, while my brother, who lives much more distant, only crashes occasionally or requests it for a couple of weeks while I often used it through the winter. My brother is now married to my sister-in-law, 25 female. My sister-in-law has very specific ideas of what their new married life will be like. Pinterest board, custom hashtag for social media, affirmations posted around the house. The beach house features prominently in it. Despite their having to drive 4 hours to get to it, she insists we should divide time equally and leave it free if they want it, and that she may well redecorate to make it more hers. I have redecorated that house to suit me. I asked my brother for no money except for structural issues. There are 3 bedrooms, so there are no reasons we couldn't be there together. My brother literally told me he wasn't there enough to care about swapping use of the main bedroom, which is the only seafront one, and in which my husband has built our bed. She wants that particularly, claiming it would be their perfect love nest. I think it's my bedroom, and while she's welcome to my brother's, she can't have mine as well. We had established how to work it. I've built my patterns around it, and I don't want to change it now. She says she can't be there while we're there because it would ruin the feeling of retreat. My brother is happy with whatever she's happy with. but I know very well determined opposition on my part will make him back down. The last discussion we had about it, when I pointedly asked, would she like to live, laugh, love on the kitchen table, he winced and left the room. So, if I want to hold on to the house on my terms, I can. But does it make me the jerk? To be clear, I don't object to their being here more. I don't object to their having more alone time. I don't object to their redecorating their room or bathroom, however. I don't object to their bringing some things in. But I object to having to swap my room after 12 years, having her overhaul spaces I redecorated and spent money on, and agreeing to a rigid 50-50 schedule when I already know my brother's CBA with regular long drives. ETA. You guys, I'm totally fine with being called the jerk, but I find it hilarious that people here think my brother is an unfortunate and bullied soul. He left our hometown to strike out on his chosen career. He did wonderfully. He bought a house before me and my husband did. He adores traveling abroad, and until he met sister-in-law, he wasn't keen on romantic commitment. I'd spent weekends pottering about the house, and he'd fly back to Bangkok to hike, and that was wonderful for both of us. The issue here is that he is conflict avoidant and unwilling to discuss this with me and my sister-in-law. I certainly flipped out, and I'm happy admitting it and bringing discussion back. But believe you me, he wasn't in the beach house because he was having the time of his life elsewhere. ETA 2. Right, people, I think I heard enough. I've spoken to a mortgage advisor as to how much I should offer and will discuss it with my husband reusing our savings as deposit. I will then offer to my brother when we meet up to discuss, details being firmed up. If I manage, I'll update. One thing I want to say is, it's pretty laughable to me that people so quickly assume I don't know my brother or am strong-arming him or bullying him or whatever else. I got use of the house, and he got someone else to maintain his private in-suite for the 1 to 2 weeks a year he wanted it. Sea view room might be best for lots, but he rather wanted to annex a bathroom, and that's what he did. They also aren't Airbnb-ing this, as some of you suggested. This isn't a random vacation share, it's a well-loved family home that, with my brother's full knowledge, consent, and enjoyment of the fact that everything was clean and lovely and updated every time he came here, which was rarely, I used more and more over the years. I trust my brother to acknowledge that. As for people change when they get married, if this was my brother asking me these things, it would be different. What I got was my sister-in-law swanning in with demands and him murmuring non-committally in the background. You are all very right. I should have brought it to him first though, and that's on me. But I hardly denied his wishes, because truth is, his wishes haven't changed. They've been together 2 years, and his pattern of using the house hasn't changed. She just thinks it will, because now she has redone their main home, she wants another project/Instagram backdrop.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.